Hello, everyone. Happy debate review night. Yeah, we're on two channels today. I am joined, as always, by my good friend Mark Reed, but also our special guest for our big 100th episode-ish extravaganza, our friend and yours, John, the Godless engineer. How are you this evening, fellas?
I'm doing
good. I'm
great.
good. Did we ever figure out whether this was 100 or the next one's 100? Did we ever figure that out? Because we weren't sure. We literally had no idea. It'd be great if it was this one. That would pair up wonderfully. But how are you doing, John? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited for this review. I've not been in the debate space, like officially debating, like a lot, and I wish that I had more opportunities to debate, because I do feel like I've got, pretty good like responses and good tactics when it comes to it, and I'm really just I hope that in the course of this review, that regardless of how I feel about it, y'all will, give me good constructive criticism about it. Like, I feel like there are parts where I feel like I could have done better, or I could have made better arguments or whatever. But I really hope that y'all, don't hold back or anything like that, because the only way that I can get better is if I, is if I really hear those hard truths, about my performance.
Oh, John, you have no fear of that. So part of being on the spectrum, I will say stuff, and sometimes I am nitpicky, and I'll point out, hey, like this is something, but I'm being really nitpicky, and I can be. So keep that in mind. That even like it's so hard to be perfect on the night. Like often Ember of I has said, it's really easy to say these things watching it and having a pause button, and like looking at it afterwards, it's really easy to go, oh well, he could have done this, or that was probably a mistake. But in the moment, it's a lot harder to because I debate myself, I know it's a lot harder to actually think of doing that at the time. You have that spirit of the stairway. If you're, it's in French. It means something that you wish you'd said in a conversation that you occurs to you later, and it's like, oh, that would have been the perfect response. So, as constructive criticism, absolutely, that won't be a problem.
Okay. Yeah. And at the end of this, before we leave out, I'll definitely let everybody know how the judges, because there were actually judges for this debate, how they scored it, which is going to be surprising. I felt like I was really surprised by it, but maybe other people won't be surprised if they hear the debate. So I don't know. I'm interested to hear everybody's responses.
It is a little bit weird. For a bit of background, for anybody who isn't familiar, a few days ago, John was over on the depths of the interwebs and did a debate against Joel Settecase from the guy from the Think Institute.
Settecase?
Yeah,
Settecase. I think it's Settecase.
I think so, yeah.
One of the guy from the Think Institute. And it was pretty special, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at tonight. There's a few different sections to it, and there were judges at the end, but wow, it should be pretty cool. Quick.
I've only ever... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, John, Godless Engineer at Godless Engineer here on YouTube. I'm Ember from Better Than Ember, and Mark from Mark Reed Atheism. For anybody who doesn't know somehow.
There's probably one or two out there. I've only ever been in one marked debate like that, one scored debate kind of thing, and it was, they had a criteria that was over on Snake Was Right's channel. It was Debate Cafe when it was up and running. So that was interesting, but they weren't really marking you on the substance, like whether or not you presented decent sound arguments. They were marking you more on the structure, like how you actually set it up, how you presented and things like that. So they weren't really determining like what an ordinary person would think is the winner of the debate. They were marking purely on your debate tactics and how you presented it, basically. So was that like what they were marking, or was it marking sort of on the more outcomes based, like how you did?
I don't know. Maybe Ember has a better grasp of because I didn't understand their criteria. It really just seemed to boil down to how convincing either side was, as far as just, and it seemed to be regardless of the actual debate question. It seemed to be like, how rhetorically convincing is the person, is what it seems to be. And they I think they mentioned something about substance, but like, I really don't understand how people could think that I didn't bring substance. I had direct quotes from the Bible. Like, I cited all of my stuff. Like, I feel like I did a good job of like grounding my information in like the actual source material of like the Bible and all that kind of stuff. And so it really just seemed to be like these people didn't feel like I did a good enough job, or as far as like their criteria goes, like how well. I kind of gave away the ending there a little bit. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, spoilers.
Yeah. How well did the person do to convince me of their position, instead of how well did the person do to address the question of the debate? That seems to be what their criteria was.
Yeah, see, that shouldn't be part of it in a formal debate. That shouldn't be something like convincingness isn't really what you're after. There'll be a rhetoric section, but it's relatively minor. It's more, what was your logical arguments like, whether they had, that logical structure to them, and whether they were sound, like you had, you weren't committing any fallacies or anything like that, how well researched you were, how you presented it. More than, well, was it convincing to me, is sort of a section, but it's not a very big section. That's a very strange way to mark it.
Right.
Yeah.
The debates that I've been in back in school and such, they were scored by judges, but it was based on your technical performance. Often the audience would vote on who won, but that didn't affect your score at all.
Right. Yeah,
it was just a fun thing.
Yeah. So a big difference that people will notice in my approach and Joel's approach here is that Joel had like a syllogistic thing that he presented first, and then he went into specifics about certain points in his syllogism. I more or less had a thesis that I then went into supporting information for my thesis, and then I rounded it out by basically restating, this is my thesis and I've supported it in my supporting evidence. So I guess I tackled it in a more, narrative sort of way, and Joel attacked it in a more technical syllogistic way, as and I mean, I feel like I could boil mine down to a syllogism that would, hold up. It would be logically sound and everything like that. Like, I could boil it down that way. But like, I guess in my experience, people don't get wrapped up in the syllogism too much. But like, if you can explain it, if you can explain it in like sort of a narrative format, in the way that I did it, like thesis, supporting evidence, and then wrapping it up by restating what your thesis is and that you supported it. Like, I feel like that is a nice bookended way of like making your argument in this kind of case. To me, it came off like Joel was trying to emulate William Lane Craig, because I see Craig doing a lot of the things that he did.
Timeless, spaceless.
Well, I remember the debate that William Lane Craig did with Sam Harris. And in it, like, Craig does a very procedural, like, here is my syllogism. And,
he always does.
Yeah.
He always does.
Yeah, I'm gonna do point 2, because that's gonna be the most, like, one that has the most problems and everything. And so like, that's how Joel went about it. And I'm just like talking to the audience. Like, I'm just like, hey, look, here's what it is. Here's the supporting evidence. And then I'm going to remind you like what the situation actually is. And I don't know, I feel like I had a stronger argument, but I guess we'll just have to see.
Well, so winning a formal debate and convincing the audience are two different things. Like, if you're trying to do them. For instance, one of the greatest debaters of all time, Christopher Hitchens, probably wouldn't score that highly on technical things like, things like that. He probably would score really well on the rhetoric, but not sort of the technical, putting out a syllogism. Did he have, that many references? But his conclusions and stuff really persuaded audiences because he was such a good, he presented things in a way that people could understand. And I think there's a bit of a disconnect out there with some debate schools that they go, oh, well, you need to have syllogisms and have this philosophy, and have all of this stuff. The problem comes that a lot of people just don't care and don't understand what the hell they're talking about. It's why, we've got to watch it when we're throwing out, oh, that's a fallacy, that we explain, if we're going to do that, we explain what the hell it is. Because if I say, hey, that's appeal to consequences, for instance, I can throw that out and I understand what it means, and you guys understand, but nobody else will understand what the hell it means. So it depends what you think of as winning a debate, because if you want just convincing an audience, well, if you just mark the debate on technical ability and rhetoric and whether, that kind of stuff, it probably won't convince people. So, and there's this thing about, who are you speaking to? Are you trying to convince the judges? Because that's not the goal of a debate, right? You're there to talk to people out there in the audience and convince them. So the judges shouldn't be looking at, did it convince me? It should be, was that convincing to the audience? But that sort of gets lost in the nuance between sort of informal debates and formal ones. So I don't think, even if you lost the debate on the points, I don't think necessarily that you did a bad job. You can still do a good job and, lose technically the debate. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's why I really rely on peers that I respect, like you and Ember, to come in and give me good constructive feedback as to how I can present it better or how I can make better arguments or something like that. I mean, I feel like I was doing a decent job. I have identified some things that I could have done better, instead of getting sidetracked and the ADHD thing of oh, look, a shiny squirrel. I need to figure. I want to track down this shiny squirrel that just appeared. I feel like if I had a more hyper focused approach on some of the traps that I laid, I think that it could have been more been rhetorically better. But I mean, I just really rely on you guys to sort of, I guess, make me better, I guess, is the way that I want to say
we
it.
all do. We all do, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a therapist that I really respected. They sort of used to say, you can't see the label on the jar from the inside. We have to talk to other people and sort of get what we're doing. We can never just go, oh, well, this is what I'm doing wrong, or this is what I'm doing right, and I need to focus on it from the inside. We kind of need that feedback. It seems to be a human thing. So absolutely, I love getting feedback on my debates. So yeah, absolutely. And I'm really excited because I know that Joel can be slippery. He can be a slippery one. He can be sneaky. He definitely has that pre-sup bro energy that sort of, tries to gaslight and tries to, be really sneaky about it. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
it should be really fun. So let's pull up our beastie here. Do we want to be on the bottom or off to the side?
Wherever you feel happiest, Ember. I'm running with exactly what you want. Absolutely.
Oh goodness. I guess I don't know. I like across the bottom because it makes the video bigger, but on the flip side, we get kind of lost in the other people in the room. Off to the side might be, I don't know.
Well, let's run it and see how we feel. Let's mix it up. Let's do
it's not that important. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Real quick before we get started, make sure you're subscribed at all the channels, because Mark and I go back and forth on each other's channels every weekend with a new debate review. And while GE doesn't join us every time, he does a bunch of cool stuff too.
Well, I'd love to get more people on because I as I've said before, I really like to ask, it's really interesting when you sort of see somebody, it's really easy to go, well, this is what they were probably trying to do. But we can ask John, what was your tactics? What were you attempting here? Which is really interesting to me. So I think we're having Leo Filius on next for one of his debates. And I think after that, there was somebody else that requested to come on, and I can't remember. It was Bree. Yes, of course it was. It was Hive Science. So I would love to do more with people on, because it's always fascinating to see, what they were trying to do, and what they were thinking, and I think it's awesome. So I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming, John. It's fantastic to see you, mate.
I'm more than willing to come on and do these debate reviews. I mean, I don't consider myself a great debater or even a master debater, but I do like. I mean, one of the things that really deconstructed me was like looking at analyzing debates, and so like I really appreciate everything that y'all do, but I more so enjoy and appreciate the debates that happen.
I mean, I've been told that I'm good. I sometimes feel conflicted about that. But I try my best, and that's all anybody does. But I think that one of the reasons why I've gotten to where I am is because people have told, I've said, hey, what could I do better? And that's really important. It's really important to say, hey, nobody sits there and goes, well, I'm the best debater there ever was, and that's it. Like, I'm sure even Hitchens himself would be saying, hey, what can I do to improve? I think it's an open-ended thing. So no, yeah. I'm a mass debater. I debate lots of people. I'm a mass debater. That's what I am. Yes,
it's true.
But thanks, mate.
There's even an emoji on Mark's channel.
Yep.
We'll be over there next weekend if this goes into a part 2.
Yeah,
sure. We'll get to see it. Oh, goodness. All right. Let's hit it, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you to our host and my opponent, John.
Oh, quick production note. I cut out the lengthy intro. Joel struggled with his technology for like half an hour, and then there's introducing the debaters and so on and so forth. We're going right from his opening.
Yeah.
Our audience, the judges. Tonight, we address the most foundational question of life. Does the Christian God exist? My goal is to vindicate this proposition by showing that the very possibility of understanding reality, what I'll call intelligibility, presupposes the existence of the triune God of Scripture, the Christian God. First, I'll define a few key terms. Then I will present 2 arguments. I will first show that intelligibility obtains or is real, and then that it presupposes God. And next, I will discuss the challenge facing my opponent.
So he's off to a bad start because he has a positive proposition of evidence for the Christian God. And I get that he's a presuppositionalist. He likes to do the tag nonsense, but he's outright saying, I am not going to answer the question. I'm dodging it completely.
Right. And I think he's also... Sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead, Mark.
No. Go for it. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll just...
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, in his opening, I was totally thrown off by his use of words because he said, like, whether or not the Christian God obtains. And I'm like, obtains what? Like, I had no idea what he meant by obtains, because I guess I'm just used to like that being used in a way like, oh, he obtains the key kind of thing, maybe. I don't know. I was thrown off by his vocabulary in his opening, and so I didn't know what he meant. But I mean, he explains what he means. I don't think that he accomplished it.
So yeah, and that's a really good observation. It's loaded language. So he up front he sort of says the foundational question, and that's only foundational for Christians. Right. To other people, it's just a foundational question. It's a question about foundations, a metaphysical question, if you will, which pertains to foundations and reality and existence. So he's already setting it up as, well, this is foundational to both of us. But for an atheist, that's not a foundational question, like whether the Christian God is real. It's more sort of trying to front load things into this presuppositional arguments. And you'll notice that, John, presupps will have their own language. Preconditions of intelligibility, right? That the only place you hear that is from presupps, right? Like they love that phrase. So I was watching this thing on somebody talking to ChatGPT, and it kept bringing up sort of presup stuff, and it's because he asked it about preconditions of intelligibility, which you probably won't hear that much outside that pond. So, you know, they use their own language with their own definitions for things. We can just reject it and say, hey, intelligibility is just a, you know, part of the universe. It doesn't need a precondition. Why does it need a precondition?
Yeah, I don't even know what like would be a necessary precondition other than whatever is like metaphysically necessary for like a universe. Which I mean, we could talk about what is metaphysically necessary, but yeah, I don't understand their position in general.
Well, I saw I was talking about it earlier, but a friend of ours was doing like a post-debate conversation with another person in the community earlier today, and they were talking about that debate was about whether naturalistic morality or theistic morality was more well-grounded. And the first thing that popped into my mind is to ground a concept, you first have to demonstrate the thing you're grounding it in actually exists. Like he can posture about intelligibility all he wants, but he can't ground it in something he has not yet demonstrated.
Correct. Yep.
So yeah.
All right, let's begin with some definitions. First, intelligibility. This is the capacity for our experiences to be understood and meaningfully interpreted. Next, the preconditions of intelligibility. These are those conditions which must be met first for intelligibility to obtain. There are at least 6: logic, mathematics, uniformity in nature, induction, reliable truth-seeking faculties, namely reason, senses, and intuition, and objective morality. Finally,
why do you need objective morality for that? I don't. What the hell?
He's just rattling off things. Holy shit.
Right. I don't mind him saying, hey, you need intelligence, you need rationality and all of that, but all of that can be gathered from materialism and sort of naturalism, just, you know, that because rationality is something that helps you survive. It can be easily grounded in an evolutionary process to produce a thinking mind. That's not a problem. And so he's sort of using this Platonic ideal of intelligibility as being something that we need out there in the world, which is weird. Weird stuff. Very weird.
Yeah, I just wanted to pause there and be like, and objective morality. Like all the other stuff, that could be a debate in its own right. Does there have to be mathematics, a human constructed system for description of numerical concepts in a logical structure? Does that have to exist out there in the universe? But he went just a little too far and threw in that objective morality, which is demonstrably not a thing.
Right, and there's an argument there whether maths is discovered or invented. Right. And there's an argument over whether maths is something out there in the world or whether it is a language that we use. I'm a nominalist, so I think it's just a language that we use to describe the universe. But, you know, that's just me. And there is an argument to be made there. But objective morality, that's got nothing to do with intelligibility at all.
Even if there were such a thing, so what?
Well, and I feel like none of this actually addresses the question of the debate, because the question is, does the Christian God exist? And like all of that, I feel generally is used to assert that just a theistic God exists, and not any one specific one, but just that a God has to exist. And so this doesn't actually address the question of a Christian God. And so you know, I feel like his opening here is starting off very bad.
You're
it doesn't get
right.
you to. Sorry, Amber, go ahead.
I was just going to say you're getting a little bit ahead of me, but it is a red herring. He throws that out there to get you to fight over all sorts of unrelated stuff when you could grant all of this and be like, okay, cool, I'll give you that. Now show me your God is real. Show me it's Christianity instead of any of the other possible alternatives. And he's got nothing. Yeah. He's still holding a bag.
Well, I think that it doesn't even get you to a theistic God, right? It gets you to some sort of deistic God. So theistic means that he interacts with people personally, that he's a personal God that has some influence on the universe around him. it only gets you to a deistic God, because he could have set up all of those things ahead of time and then walked away, and it's still intelligibility would have been there. You've got to do more work to get. I think that he could get to the Christian God from here. That's the thing. Like, if this is just the first setup and he then goes to why it is the Christian God, then he's got an argument. So I don't necessarily mind this. It's just, if he stops here, like a lot of presups do, then yeah, it's sort of irrelevant. If he wants to try and lead up to a Christian God, then yeah, he's got an argument. But I feel like it's probably going to be a non sequitur of, the Bible proves itself, therefore God kind of nonsense, like circular arguments.
It's a virtuous circle, Mark.
As Saitem Bruggencate once told me, apparently it's a spiral, not a circular argument.
Oh, my mistake. How far be it from me to contradict Saitem, because if you don't agree with him, then pizza sleeps fast under the west, therefore the much.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently so.
The word presuppose. For one concept to presuppose another means it only makes sense if the other is already true. Now, my first of two arguments.
It's irreducibly complex. Someone call Mike B.
So Joel has a problem basically accepting anybody else's presuppositions except for his own. We could presuppose that some kind of, natural universe just provides this for us. And the whole idea behind presuppositions is they don't have to have any justification for them whatsoever. If you had justification, you wouldn't be presupposing it. You'd be just, referring to the reason why you believe that. So presuppositions are kind of, when people all agree on them, they're axiomatic. They're basically an axiom of where you start. So us saying that maths has this certain rules, that would be a presupposition, sure, but we all agree on it, so it becomes the axioms of mathematics. Joel basically wants to presuppose. All that you have to do is just reject that presupposition. I just reject it. If he wants to presuppose stuff, just reject it. You don't have to. It's sort of like presuppositions don't need validation, but they don't need validation to reject either.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Hitchens famously said, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was going to point out is the Hitchens razor there, and I would definitely dispute a lot of his presuppositions in his opening statement here, and obviously I have problems with it. But again, like I crafted my opening not to respond to his, so just in case anybody's expecting me to like do an on the fly response to him, I'm not going to be doing that.
No, that's
fair.
to be expected. That's what rebuttals are for. Your opening is supposed to be a standalone thing. Dr. Kip Davis dropping a comment, who has apparently violated a law of physics and written a book recently. It's called God's Propaganda. If you haven't heard, look it the fuck up. There's a few videos on Kip's channel about it. I'm not going to go into it a lot here, but it looks pretty cool. Paula G was impressed. Anyway, Dr. Kip says Joel Settecase has designed his own PhD program that he is putting himself through, which is an interesting choice.
I don't understand how that works.
That seems on par for Joel, actually.
Well, I'm just going to presuppose I have a PhD.
So I said to Ember the other day, what's interesting about this type of creationist is how much they rail against academia, and then they do everything to try and look like they're part of the academia that they reject. So it's almost like this, well, we want to reject all of your science and things like this and academic institutions, your universities and stuff, and rail against them. But then we want to replace them with ourselves as this authority. So they try everything to look like the academic institutions that they reject, which is hilarious to me, because it's like they're not academic institutions because they wear, tan suits and have books behind them and things like that. That's not why they're the institutions that we trust. And logos, oh boy.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious to me, how he's like, he's got the freaking coat on, and he's got the old school like accounting lamp or whatever, which is illuminating what exactly, and then of course the logo, Think Institute, across a big old book. Of course, there's only one book, which, you know, it's this book, but still.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Does intelligibility obtain? Is it real? Yes. Here's why. Premise 1, either intelligibility obtains or it does not. Premise 2, denial of intelligibility is self-refuting. To deny it, one must affirm it, making an understandable claim about reality while denying the possibility of understandability. Therefore, intelligibility obtains. It's unavoidable. Now for my second argument. This is my main argument. Why does intelligibility presuppose God? Premise 1, if God does not exist, then the preconditions for intelligibility must be accounted for without him by atheism. Premise 2, but atheism cannot account for the preconditions of intelligibility.
No, not necessarily. It, like,
It's
sort of,
embarrassing.
you know, so when we're talking about accounting for things, it's basically saying, hey, there can be a reason for it. You can use magic to account for the preconditions of intelligibility, right? You can use anything to. Right. Well, we can if we want. Like, there's nothing that stops you from being an atheist. What he's doing is doing a false dichotomy, right? It's either a god or it is nothing at all, right? You cannot account for it. And that's not true, because even if I'm an atheist, I don't believe in a god, and I say it is a magical force that flows throughout the universe, you know, just a naturalistic magic. That accounts for it, and it's not a god, right? So he's not actually, you know, his syllogism isn't actually adding up here, because he's basically saying, well, it has to be a god because there can be nothing else that accounts for it. I've just accounted for it. I don't believe in that thing, but I've just accounted for it.
I mean, it's clearly nil, the great not god and creator of creator gods, which also accounts for where the gods came from. So it's a superior answer, obviously. Or whatever you prefer, Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, or Praise Doug, or what have you. You know, I mean, it's...
Well, I'd say you could still argue that that is a god, right? Like, that still meets the criteria of a god, and that's what a precept would do. The reason why I give the Blarney stone, which is a magical stone that just, for instance, accounts for the intelligibility of the universe, but it's just a stone, is because it's not an agent. It can't decide anything, can't make decisions. It's a magical stone. So they cannot say that's a god, because by definition, a god has to be able to make decisions. So that's why I use it, because that's another option for the preconditions of intelligibility, and it's not a god.
Dr. Suitcase. I love
Dr.
it.
Suitcase.
There's Bree. We were just talking about you. We haven't forgotten. You're on our list.
Hi, Bree.
4, the triune God of Scripture exists. Let me defend premise 2. Let's walk through each of the 6 presuppositions, or preconditions rather, of intelligibility, and let's see how each one presupposes God. For each one, we're going to perform an internal critique of the Christian position to show how it accounts for it, and then a reductio ad absurdum of the atheist position to show how it does not. We'll start with laws of logic. Laws of logic, there are 3 of them, and they are immaterial, universal, unchanging, conceptual laws grounded in the mind of God. This is the biblical worldview.
Okay. My problem with this is that conceptual means it only exists in the imagination. It only exists as an abstract. But universal means that it exists everywhere. So how can something only exist in certain places and be universal? I'm not sure I understand how that works. Nominalism accounts for it, basically saying that, hey, we have a setup of, okay, these are the laws of logic. They're describing something in the world, but it's only a model. Just like, say, the theory of gravity, for instance, is describing something in the world, but it's only a model. So Newton's theory of gravity basically was useful, but not exactly correct. The other thing you could say, John, to that one is that if you go into quantum logic, the laws of logic don't hold. We kind of throw them out the window when getting down into quantum states. So if they're universal, why don't they apply in quantum states? Why can something have a superposition? Which kind of, it may violate the laws of logic. It kind of does, but we have to use our own different logical system in that area, which means that it's not universal.
And additionally, the saying the laws of logic are grounded in God, that just doesn't work with his specific God, because every atheist on the planet has noticed at some point that the idea that it's three separate things but also the same thing violates the first law of logic. It is an illogical concept inherently.
Or the
So
second.
if you want to use the laws of logic, that's fine, but that rules out your proposed God specifically.
Well, you do get Christians that aren't triune gods. Anything of the Trinity just doesn't make sense under logical, but they have special pleading for that one.
Oh, of course,
so, yeah.
we do love the specialist pleading.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
In one, the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, and the law of excluded middle are each equally ultimate. These are grounded in the Trinity. Atheism denies God and has nothing to ground logic with.
What?
Logic.
How? Why is that grounded in the Trinity?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know why that's grounded in the Trinity. See, this is something that Joel does throughout the entire thing, is that he just asserts things and he just expects the audience to go along with it. And he doesn't actually like make an argument for it. He just says,
Correct.
oh, this thing because of the Christian God, therefore John's fucked. And that's seems to be what his tactic is.
Yeah, so the fallacy is begging the question. It's a informal fallacy that basically means that you've asserted something without actually demonstrating the truth of the claim. Now, I think he's trying to frame this as a hypothetical, but it's veering into, well, I don't have to ground this thing because it's already grounded in the God of the Bible. And it's like, well, hold on a second. You never actually, like, that does not follow. So he's just asserting that is the case. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
This is so much fun. The poor guy, he's not going to get a full sentence out.
No.
I think he got 2 sentences that time.
Yep.
Stop making fallacies, Joel. Damn it.
Attributes. Next, mathematics. The principles of mathematics are immaterial, universal, and unchanging, grounded in the mind of God. The Trinity solved.
No. This is
unchanging?
where we run into that whole, is it described or invented? Because the principles of mathematics didn't include the numeral 0 until the 11th century. They do change as we discover more. Now you can say it was always there, just waiting to be discovered. But there's so many problems. I mean, if it comes from God, where's the divine revelation? Where's the description of 0 in here? Or even an accurate value of pi? Holy shit. Our understanding changes because it's our understanding. It's not a universal thing. And we can see this in other mathematical systems. Like the ancient Babylonians had a base 12 system. They came up with a lot of cool, useful math, which is why we still use some of it. Why there's 360 degrees in a circle, base 12. Why there's 2 12-hour segments of day, base 12. 60 minutes in an hour, base 12. Holy crap. Our understanding of math changes because it's a human-based concept.
Yeah, and we've changed, well, in the computer age, we've changed to binary to do all of our calculations, like it does change. And plus, can I just add that Newton literally invented and added calculus to mathematics? Like it wasn't a thing until later. Joel, what are you talking about? To be honest with you, I will say right now, base 12 is actually superior to base 10. It is superior.
I agree.
It's divisible by 6, by 5, not 5, by 3, by 4. It's actually superior to base 10. I'll just put it out there.
I just like it for utility because you can count to 12 on one hand. I mean, you don't have to use base 12 to do it, but it works out nicely with your knuckles. You just count the segments between knuckles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I only needed 4 digits for that. And we got to it's so efficient.
You've now made me look at my fingers.
How dare!
I mean, anytime anybody says that like mathematics or even like the underlying mathematics of everything is like somehow static or like it's unchanging or it's like absolute, it's like, no, mathematics as we know them is something that we've constructed in order to describe reality. And so And I frequently cite like Newton as like a good example of how we've changed mathematics in order to better describe our reality. And it just seems to go over their head.
Well, you can
Like,
use
really?
maths to describe things. It can describe anything, including things that don't exist, right? You can use mathematics and mathematical equations to come to anything. What we're doing is we're just using the equations that reflect the reality around us. So really that's what we're putting into practice. Now, I still think there's a massive argument over whether it's invented or found. It just, to me, maths seems to be a approximation of sort of the rules or the laws of reality, like just the reality around us, and we're just using mathematics to reflect it. And maths can reflect anything, including inaccurate things. Like there's no real problem with doing a calculation with pi as 3 instead of 3.14, whatever. It's just it will not reflect reality when you do it.
Yeah, it's less precise. I get that, mathematicians consider, is it invented or discovered? They yes, great, but you can use it's a descriptive system. It is a language. It's just a very logical, formal language. And so you could say the same thing about English. Is English invented or discovered? Because we constantly are creating new words to describe new concepts. Are those concepts platonic existent things that we're just getting around to describing, or are we inventing the thing? Now, there's a whole long tangent to go on about that, but the point is, from a mathematician's perspective, they'll often say yes, and you definitely can consider it to basically be a language. One of many possible languages you can use to do mathematics with. Base 10, as we said, not the only option. Hexadecimal's popular too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is the problem of the one and many, and God grounds the principles of mathematics. Atheism denies God and has nothing to ground math.
Okay,
Math
okay, just 1 second, sorry. Okay, just 1 sec. The problem of the one and many is an old problem. Like it is something that no one's really got an answer for, like hard solipsism or something like that. Like one of the real big problems, and that is sort of how something can be one thing, like I am one thing, but there's also many cells in my body, right? So it's sort of like we look at things as one, but how can it be one when it is in fact made up of many different things? It's just this sort of philosophical problem. Generally, we get around it by sort of saying, hey, that sort of one thing, it's just a description. It's just our language to describe it. And it's not sort of really... there's even a sort of hypothesis by quantum physicists, and this is just a hypothesis, that the universe isn't many things. It's just one thing, and it's all quantum entangled. And that's a hypothesis, but nobody really knows. But Christians don't have an answer to this either. Like why we consider ourselves one discrete thing when really we're made up of many things. Like they don't have an answer for it either.
It's a fun thought exercise. I mean, we can come up with reasons from an evolutionary standpoint. Why is there consciousness? Is it to do the intelligibility of the universe, or is it because there's an evolutionary advantage for a big old cluster of cells like ourselves to think of ourselves as one discrete organism, the whole thing as one entity? I tend to lean towards that one, but who's to say?
With atheism, science depends on uniformity in nature and induction, and it is the sovereign creator in the biblical worldview that can guarantee nature's order. The idea that...
Hold on. I see a problem here. In a universe without a God, we would expect uniformity of nature because the universe has no choice but to follow the laws of physics and whatnot. Whereas in a universe with a God, you would expect to see discontinuities where the miracles happen and so forth. And we don't see those. Now, of course, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. But the thing is, you can't say the universe never demonstrates miracles, therefore God. Those are separate circles that don't overlap.
The future will be like the past, and our ability to reason about the world. Yes, miracles can happen, but they're meant to be weird to prove a point. Atheism, on the other hand, denies God and cannot account for uniformity in nature or induction. The atheist's belief in these things, and he does believe in them, is there...
That's not how the problem of induction works.
Nope.
Like the fuck is he saying? Like, you can point at you know, how do you know the sun's going to rise tomorrow? It's induction, but it's more than just, oh, you're looking at the past to try to predict the future. It's also, we've seen an established pattern of data, and through skepticism, we have no reason to suppose it may change. And it's a thing that precepts don't like to go into. They don't want to say, oh, you don't know. It's not you don't know. It's we don't have a reason to think otherwise. It's the same reason we're atheists. We're not out here saying there is definitely for sure no supernatural being of any kind. It's we have no reason to think so. That's skepticism. Shit. I get excited sometimes. Yeah.
Hey, that's totally fine. I like it.
Bob says atheists cannot account for miracles. Checkmate.
Right, and that's essentially what he's saying.
Checkmate, atheist. You're fucked.
Whereas in a naturalistic universe, we would expect natural laws to produce deterministic outcomes.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe y'all will disagree on this, but like I feel like if miracles were an actual thing, then it would be like Christians or those that believe in miracles, they couldn't actually do science because it's like science requires like the uniformity in nature, whereas God just on a whim breaks the uniformity of nature. So there's like literally no way that you can make a reasonable probabilistic hypothesis about future events. And so like I don't understand how that works in a very tag oriented mind.
Well, it really doesn't. But, scientists can be Christians. That's not a problem. They just have to leave that at the door, the religion at the door, or the non-uniformity of nature, the miracles at the door. And, many of them do, and that's totally fine. So it is secular and not atheistic. But you're right. If you're saying, hey, it's a miracle at any point. So what I really love the show Three Body Problem, because at very early on, and I'm not spoiling anything because this is kind of the premise of the show, is that science stops working, like induction stops working. They have random results for every single experiment they do, like in a hadron collider or something. That's what I would expect if we didn't have uniformity of nature, that we just do it and it just every single time it's just completely random and physics just isn't working anymore. So I like that show because it sort of says how if induction keeps working, why wouldn't we keep using it? Because it is working.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't seen the show. I read the book. I assume it's the same situation, but yeah, it's fascinating. And that also goes to show how our understanding of things is not revealed. We have to figure it out ourselves. We still haven't solved the three-body problem, hence the name. There's more math yet to be discovered or described, depending on your perspective.
Therefore arbitrary. Next are truth-seeking faculties. There are three: reason, sense perception, and intuition. These are all aimed at truth and generally reliable because of God's intention. We are made in God's image. And
intuition is not reliable?
Not even close. It's barely 50-50 on your good days. But also, like, sense perception, isn't their entire thing you can't rely on your senses? It's a fallacious argument itself, but they bring it out all the time. What do you mean? We know they're not 100% reliable. Magicians exist. Optical illusions exist. Those magic eye puzzles. That we not only know our senses can be tricked, we have industries built on the fact.
Well, it's black and white thinking. It's basically if you can't be absolutely sure, then you don't know it all. And this is the problem with precepts. They go in for this. They smuggle in an absolute certainty. So we can be really confident in our senses, right? We keep using them every day. If I want to drive my car, I can be confident enough to get from A to B kind of thing. We use them all the time. Now, that they're not 100% reliable, we know that, absolutely. I agree, Amber, we know that. But the precept wants to say, well, if you can't be absolutely sure, then you don't know it all. And that's black and white thinking. That's this idea that it's all or nothing. Whereas what we can do is have a reasonable confidence in our senses, but check on things. If I see a purple elephant, flying across the sky, I can check with other people. Did someone put LSD in my coffee, kind of thing? Like we can actually determine this. So this is a problem with pre-subs in particular, that they want to say, well, if you can't be absolutely sure, then you don't know it all. No, that's not how that works. That isn't how confidence in your senses works.
They're dodging epistemology entirely. Like, that's what epistemology is for. Like, if you want to say, okay, well, if you don't know, if it isn't divinely revealed to you from a magic undead carpenter ghost who wants to live inside you for some reason, then you can't know anything. Cool. Given that, how do we then come to know things with reasonable certainty? Like, if only there were a way we could determine which things are true and which things aren't. Like, testing and repeated experimentation, perhaps. I don't know. I'm silly.
What a wild idea.
Is the intended favorable environment which God has created for us to discover truth within it. Atheism, on the other hand, denies the designer and cannot account for the reliability of our truth-seeking faculty. Again, the atheist's belief here is arbitrary and unfounded. Finally, morality. Our consciences.
It's not arbitrary and it's not unfounded. Yeah, we have direct sensory perception, right? So that is just something that we have, and we have a lot of reasons to think that it is true, and we have no reason to think that it's not true. So I don't know why that would be arbitrary. There's definitely reasons for why we do it. So arbitrary just means there's no reason whatsoever. And it's wild.
Yeah. We just
Joel,
like pretending logic works.
I'm really sorry, John. Is this the shortest we've let somebody talk? Because seriously, this is like every 2 seconds he's saying something that has a problem with it. Every second. It's actually impressive.
Mm-hmm. This is why we rarely cover pre-subs, partly because there's not all that much to talk about, but also because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that none of this is actually addressing like a specific Christian God. All of this so far is like a setup to just theistic belief and not specific Christianity. And like I feel like this is an important part of his opening, because like his opening is supposed to be like his strongest unopposed case for his position that Christianity is like true, or that the Christian God is the God that exists. And so he's only so far made an argument that just a general God exists, right?
Yes. That some God of some description somewhere exists. This is nothing to do with Christianity, correct?
Well, he did throw in Trinity, but he didn't tie it to anything. He just threw it on the pile. Or triune, rather. Whatever.
Alert us to when we are doing something wrong. And they even commend us when we're doing something right, as explained in Romans 2:14 and 15 in the Christian worldview. Morality is a vital element of intelligibility. Many obligations are both universal and interpersonal, such as prohibition of murder, the obligation to treat others fairly. This reflects the nature of the triune God, who is good, righteous, and who is love. Atheism cannot explain morality as anything other.
Wait, is he righteous or is he love? Like he's asserting, laws of logic and stuff, and then he's throwing out things that, while not necessarily mutually exclusive, are often contradictory. I don't know. Also, Romans, what did he say? 2:15? Like, he's just going to throw out random scriptures and not explain what the hell they say? That's kind of weird. I get that he has a limited amount of time.
Well, yeah, but in my opening, as people will see, I feel like I present like, the concept and then I cite the scripture. So it's like, what the scripture is going to say by like the context that I put it in. And Joel just doesn't seem to do that, in my opinion.
Is it a Christian channel? Does he expect everybody to know who's watching? Like, is it sort of?
It's a debate channel. So like, it's not necessarily Christian. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
precondition to knowledge. Okay, I just looked it up in my handy dandy Bible. Thanks to Robin Webster for sending this to me.
Thanks, Robin.
It's that the law is written on your heart thing. Okay, here it is.
Oh.
They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them, and at other times even defending them.
Mark, I love your reaction.
I just don't like a book says a thing. Like he hasn't established that book has any kind of authority in this situation. He's just said, hey, this says a thing that makes what I've said correct.
But Mark, God wrote it on your heart.
Apparently so, yeah. And I might add, these are from times when there was cardiocentrism. They thought that the heart did the thinking. And you can understand why, because when you have like deep thoughts or a lot of emotion, you feel it in your heart. But we know now it isn't your heart doing the thinking. That is chemicals going to your heart to provide a stimulus of, stimulating a response from your organs. The head does the thinking, and there's nothing written on your heart. Your heart pumps blood around your body. That's what it does.
I believe,
Mark, you're just being literal. Like that's just like literal reality, and you need to think more. I don't know, made up bullshit like the
metaphorical. Yeah, no, he's a fundamentalist. He's a fundamentalist. He should think it's literal as well. That's the thing. They cherry pick what's literal and what's metaphorical. They're like, oh, I believe in the literal truth of the Bible. What, that something's written on your heart? Oh no, that's metaphorical. What?
How do you know that? And that's the thing.
How do you know?
That's always what takes apart all of this kind of nonsense, is just keep hitting him with how do you know? And eventually he'll end up with, oh, it's a precondition. But how do you know? It's wild. But yeah, hearts. I believe as all the world knows, a while back Matt Dillahunty had a heart surgery. And I believe, according to myth and legend, he actually had someone look to see if there was anything written there while they were in there poking around anyway. And unless it's in some really weird language like cuneiform or something, maybe, I don't know, but they didn't find anything, strangely enough. Go figure.
Within personal preference or societally based might makes right. Without God, these are arbitrary assumptions. As my friend Kevin put it to me recently, without God, we're just overgrown germs in a random chance universe or deterministic universe with no moral oversight. What right do we have to make any meaningful moral claims about?
Well, that's a false dichotomy. And it's their favorite false dichotomy. It's either God's plan or determinism, random chance, whatever. They throw something undesirable that people are supposed to emotionally say, I don't want. That means my life has no purpose, yada, yada, yada. But that's not how that works. It's not either or. There's other options, like, and straight up determinism may be the case, but we don't know. But it's definitely not random chance, not entirely. There are this whole intelligibility thing depends on some things in the universe being deterministic. If an electron smacks into a positron at the right angle, they're going to annihilate and produce gamma rays. It's not random. The thing happens,
Oppression, murder, slavery, theft, or anything else. All we can do is describe the way things are, not the way they ought to be. Actual morality is incompatible with atheism. Now, each of these 6 preconditions makes perfect sense.
I would argue that actual morality is incompatible with this book because of the moral horrors that it holds up as righteous, but that's just me with my subjective atheism or subjective ethics, whatever words.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll get to much of the question and answer section, but it seems very much like Joel seems to think that his special pleading for God absolves God of the horrible actions that he commits in the Old Testament. and he seems to really derive a lot of his argumentation from divine command theory. And I don't know if it's just me, but like I just find that incredibly insufficient to like excuse God for things. Like just saying, "Oh, well, he's God, so he can do this." Like that's not good enough for me. Like I spent so many years of my life, like 25 or more, like just accepting what people told me, and like if it rubs me the wrong way, I'm not going to just automatically assume like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, sure. Whatever that person says. I feel like you have to have a good reason for it, and I just don't think that there's a good reason to say God, because God is God, that makes it okay for him to do things. But that's ultimately what he says. I don't mean to ruin like any of the future part of this debate, but like that's ultimately what he has, is just a special pleading argument. And maybe you guys can like correct me on it if that's not what he has, but like I feel like that's what he has.
No, you're right, and he can do that. He can say, well, God says there's one set of rules for him and command us to do differently, and that makes it moral for us. He can do that. But in that case, it's a subjective morality. With the subject, the person whose stance matters is God's, who says, hey, humans shouldn't do this. So there's a really good question to appeal to here. If it was a morality debate, and that's the Euthyphro dilemma, it's where does God get morality? If it is the case that God decides what is moral for humans, then it's subjective. And he just said, and it could change tomorrow. He could say, hey, now murder's fine and go do it. And that's moral now. But it is subjective. So all of the objections that Joel has against subjective morality suddenly bites him in the ass. The other thing is, well, if it's not coming from what God says, if it comes from some other place, then you're kicking the can down the road. They've got to say, where is God getting this morality from? And if it is objective, what is that objective source? So a lot of them like to appeal to God's nature, right? And say, oh, it comes from God's inherent nature. Well, the problem there is that things act according to their nature. So things will, I will act according to my nature, Ember will act according to her nature, everybody acts according to their nature. So if it does come from God's nature, then everything God does is moral, because that's its nature. So all of the horrors in the Old Testament, that is moral for humans to do. So they've got problems where it comes to their morality. But divine command theory, that inherently is a subjective morality, because it's God gives commands of what morality has to be, right? So that's basically divine command theory. The problem with that is it always just subjective according to what God wants. So yeah, God can say, hey, if you don't do these things, that is moral and you get sent to hell, but that's just his subjective opinion. You can do bad things and you will get sent to hell, but the morality is just subjective. And I might add, it's also a might makes right. If there's a more powerful nil creator of God and not God creator of gods, if they're more powerful, then he gets to decide what morality is. So there's definite problems there where it comes to divine command theory. But of course, they will just say, hey, there's some sort of. But you're right, it is kind of special pleading. If you're saying it's objective, morality is objective, but does not apply to God and humans the same way. You're giving a special exemption for a God, unless it's just his say so. And in that case, Joel's screwed, because it's the exact same subjective morality that he's railing against right now.
Yeah, and in this debate, I feel like Joel only had like special pleading type of arguments, in that he affords God like the special, I guess, permission to like treat humans whatever way he wants to. And I feel like unless you're approaching it from a humanistic standard, then you're not actually approaching it from the best possible outcome for humans. You're approaching it from the best possible outcome for God, but that's not necessarily
Yes.
what it means for what's the best possible outcome for humans and human society. But I do want to give a big fucking shout out for Misinterpretations. We recently met her at NanoCon. She's in the comments.
She's
and
awesome.
She's just
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. I love her. I need to get okay. I'm starting to get back into interviews, and I need to get you, Mark, you, Ember, and Misinterpretations on my channel for interviews. And I know this is like totally random in the middle of this debate review, but I'm just saying,
do it.
like, I want to get
Tangents
you
in the
guys on
chat.
there.
Tangents in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a tangent emoji. We have a book set a thing emoji. We all my emojis are voted on by the members. So if you like cool emojis, consider being a member. But yes, Misinterpretations is awesome. I was just over at her place. She's doing live streams now every other Tuesday. There was this one this past Tuesday, so in a few days. But Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, they're tons of fun. We took apart some creationist nonsense, and the micro machines in the cell, one of my favorite subjects that we don't get to do as often as I might like. And it was just tons of fun. Y'all should go subscribe, check that video out, and ring the bell so you get alerted when new stuff happens, as you should be doing on every channel you actually want to hear from. Yeah, even G is a member. Hell yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All the cool kids hang out at my place.
Given the existence of the triune God of Scripture, they make no sense without him. To argue against God, the atheist has to say, I don't have to account for these things. I just know them. But that's not an argument. It's an admission that his godless worldview is inconsistent with them. So intelligibility is true, and the Christian God accounts for intelligibility, and atheism cannot account for it. Therefore, atheism is not true, and therefore the triune God of Scripture exists. Now,
no. You don't. This is the bullshit the creationists do all the damn time. They're like, oh, well, whale evolution is bullshit, therefore evolution is bullshit, therefore automatically creationism. No, you still have to demonstrate your thing. Even if you were right, which you're not, but even if you were, you can knock down all of science. We can throw out all the textbooks, all the fossils, all the research, all the data, everything gone. That still doesn't prove your bullshit.
Yes.
You have to show us your thing.
So he's doing two things here. Number one, as you said, he's doing a false dichotomy. It's either God, it's either naturalism and materialism, or it is the Christian God, right? That does not follow at all. Like as Amber said, you could completely destroy naturalism, uniformity of nature, all of this stuff that science has. It doesn't get you one iota closer to your God or a God. Can be magic, can be spirits, can be things that aren't gods but still not naturalism, right? So there's that thing. But he's also doing a sort of a argument from like trying to say, well, if you don't know, it's called an argument from ignorance or a god of the gaps, basically. Yeah. If you don't know what it is that creates this, that is, grounds intelligibility, then it must be a god. No, that does not follow. There could be all kinds of things that ground it that I don't know about and not a god. Like that does not follow at all. And just because I don't know what grounds it, doesn't mean that he gets to say it is his God. That's just saying, hey, well, you don't know, so it's my God. No, that doesn't follow. Plus, we can ground intelligibility and a lot of the things that he mentioned. It's just the universe having natural laws. That grounds it in the natural laws and deterministic nature of the universe. However it formed with these natural properties that we describe through all of maths and things like that. It works in a uniform nature. So we don't need to ground it more than that. That's all we need. That accounts for it.
Hell yeah. And you know what else we can account for?
What's that?
Super chat from My Unfinished Song for 222 USD. Thank you so much. And says, hail Ember, Mark, GE, and Micro Machines in the Cell. And then My Unfinished Sock chimed in for another $2. Thank you so much. And said, don't throw fossils out. Like and share instead, which is good advice for all of us. Absolutely. Thank you. Did I break it?
Ember,
Yeah.
Sorry. I just wanted to repeat. My wife just said Ember is the cutest, and I wanted you to know that.
I appreciate the compliment, but I have met Casey. She is much cuter. We met at the Ark. I know she doesn't come on camera much anymore, but we met at the Ark Encounter, which was the phenomenal time. I think most of us who were there have videos on it by now. So, pick your channel of preference and look for it. It was a great time. Some great speeches, some great mischief. Yeah.
I'm
that
feeling
was
kind of
actually.
jealous.
Go
And
ahead,
that
Mark.
reminds me. I'm feeling kind of jealous, but John, thank you for signing that shirt for Justin. Like, that was so good. I forgot to say, like, I almost cried, to be honest with you. It was just so wonderful, and Justin is such a nice Canadian guy. I love him. He's amazing. And all of you guys, I feel like I've said before, I feel like I'm on the other side of the world. Oh, wait, I am on the other side of the world, kind of thing. But I will try to make it to BajaCon next time. I really will try to save up and get over there, because yeah.
Mark, listen, one way or another, because I haven't been to Australia yet, but I want to be there, and so one way or another, I'm meeting you. I'm just telling you right now, clip this right now. I'm meeting you one way or another, whether you come here, which I don't want you to do, because the United States sucks. Canada's all right, but I'm just saying, like, I'm gonna meet you one way or another, and that's a promise.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. I'd love to do that. I mean, there's so many people. I really I have to hug Ember at some point. I have to, because she's been amazing.
I felt so sorry. I felt so bad that I was like, "Hey, Ember, can I get a selfie with you so I can rub it in Mark's face?" I literally said this to Ember, and like I felt so bad afterwards, because I'm like, "Oh
no, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's just that, that sort of, I would love to be there, but that's okay. Totally enjoy, revel in it. That's the best. It's the best. But thank you for signing the shirt. It was absolutely. I'm gonna frame it, because it was so good. It was just sprung on me by dirty Canadians making us feel things.
that Yahoo
Canadian
fella.
So my wife has just informed me July 28th, 2020. July 22nd, 2028 is a solar eclipse, and she's obsessed with solar eclipses, a total solar eclipse. So I guess that we're tentatively planned to be in Australia for that. We're gonna meet you at that point. It doesn't matter if he can come to Sydney or not. We're gonna see him. He doesn't live on the other side of Australia, I don't think. Where do you live at, Mark?
Western Australia. The furthest away from the US I could possibly be and still be in Australia.
Which is valid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It seems wise.
Yeah, I live in Perth, which is the western side.
If we're in Australia, honey, we're seeing Mark. Like that.
Look, no, you don't. Look, it is a long way from the rest of Australia. I live in the cul-de-sac of the world. Nobody comes here for no reason. Like, seriously,
Mark,
it's
you're not listening to me. I don't care.
Okay.
If I'm in Australia, I'm finding you, and I'm giving you a hug. Okay,
that's okay. That was scary up until the hug point. Quite frankly, that was actually
vaguely threatening. Oh, holy crap. But yeah, eclipses are cool. If you have the money, if you have the capability to chase them. I mean, hell, physics was redefined by the observation of a solar eclipse. Like, Einstein proposed his relativity. Nobody wanted to believe him, because we had Newton and his simple formulas, simple compared to Einstein's. And only Arthur Eddington's like, you know what? This German dude proposed this crazy thing. It'll be easy to prove wrong. He believed Einstein, but there was, war stuff, propaganda, whatever. He's like, hey, British government, we can make those Germans look foolish. Send me on a scientific expedition to go observe the eclipse and prove him wrong. granted, that first time didn't work out so well because of the war, but they did it on the second try. They observed an eclipse, confirmed relativity, and the world fucking changed. Our understanding of the cosmos expanded exponentially almost overnight from a solar eclipse. Also, they're very cool in person. You get the sunset colors and things. I digress.
So
yeah, we were doing a debate review. Yeah.
Oh, were we?
Yeah, we were. So we were in Ohio here in the USA for the last total eclipse that came through, and like that's what really got KC hooked on like total solar eclipses, because like it's just a phenomenal experience to have. And she's just like, where's the next one? I want to go there. And so like we're just making it happen, like wherever we can, we're gonna make it happen. And I'm telling you, Mark, if I'm in Australia, there's no way, I don't care how big Australia is, there's no way I'm not getting a hug from you. And that's just what's gonna happen. If you're okay with that, obviously.
I'm right there with you.
Okay.
I'm there with you.
Yeah. Similarly, like, I mean, if you come all the way to Sarnia, Ontario for BajaCon next year, and you know, I'm just a couple hundred miles further away, I would feel bad because, like, if you can cover half the damn globe and I can't just go a couple hundred miles, like, what the hell?
No, that's fair. I look, if you come to Australia and you can't make to Perth, I'll see if I can get over to Sydney or something, because that's fine. Or Melbourne. Melbourne's fantastic. Melbourne is one of my favorite cities as well. Yeah, Australia is the size of the US. It is. Yep.
It takes a minute. And also there's that big murder desert thing in the middle, the like the whole middle.
Yeah, that would be the Gobi Desert.
Look,
yes.
You could present me with the entire cast of The Hills Have Eyes, and I would not even blink. I'd be like, I'm seeing Mark.
Not Gobi. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'll do the thing. But in fairness to us, we are much more interesting than Joel is. Just throwing that up.
I agree.
It's supposed to be playing. Why is it not playing?
Come on, Joel.
Oh,
you can do it.
Bloody hell. Come on, Joel. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. I'll try resetting it. What are we doing?
You know, honestly, I'm really interested in how you guys
thank you.
would judge like my my opening statement, because like obviously mine's not going to be responding to him. I'm actually trying to address the question, and it's obviously not going to address anything that he did because he's not addressing the question.
That's fair. How long are the openings? I know they said, but
it's like 5 minutes, I think.
Okay, because he's a little over 5 minutes now, so he should be wrapping up anytime now, maybe, asterisk.
What is the challenge facing Mr. Gleason, my opponent? He must show not just that he can use logic and science, but that his worldview can justify them and the other preconditions of intelligibility. If he cannot, he forfeits the very tools needed to argue. After accounting for the intelligibility without God, then he would have to use the tools he has within his worldview to prove that God does not exist. Remember, tonight's debate is...
That is a hell of a reach from the debate proposal.
Yep.
Like, no shifting the burden. Thank you. No.
Well, everybody should have some sort of burden in a debate, because obviously you're taking the negative position. But yeah, he's really just saying, well, I don't have to show anything on my side. I just claim it. And then if he can't refute it, I win by default. And that is not how it works. Like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's freaking wild. Oh, goodness. Prove there is no God or I win. Fucking hell.
Not about personal preferences or revulsion or how one feels about God's commands in the Old Testament. My opponent may object to God's character or the Bible's morality, and I understand that can be very personal and very emotional. But without God...
Is that even possible under Joel's worldview? Like, if God is the source of morality and it's objective and absolute and all that crap, the fact that we can feel because it's written on our hearts, remember, we can feel that the actions in this book are immoral. How does that work?
Well, so the way that I take it is that Joel is not using his own personal whim for his moral judgments, but he's using some kind of source that's external from him. But I would contend that everybody does that, in that, you know, morality in general is a subjective topic, and can never really be transcendent or objective in the way that Joel is trying to make it to be. So, like, me appealing to, say, secular humanism, which is something that I bring up in this debate, me appealing to that is the exact same thing as him appealing to God. Like, I'm saying, oh, look, here's this standard outside of myself that I am judging, I'm using to judge these moral actions. He is appealing to a standard outside of himself that is God, that is judging these actions. And so, like, in that respect, we're doing the exact same thing. It's just that God thinks, or Joel thinks that he's superior because he's using God, or this concept of God. But I mean, I think that God is just, some asshole who made up the rules for God. And like, that's just what it is. And which may essentially makes it no different than secular humanism. Like, it's just some person that made up rules that puts people and life in general at the forefront and at the prime consideration of all moral judgments. And so I feel like in that respect, we are basically on the same level. We're discussing the same thing. We're making the same kind of judgments. It's just that we have different end goals. I care about how my actions affect my fellow humans, Homo sapiens, as well as fellow life in general. He cares about some magical mage that has particular tastes and how to bedazzle an ark that's to carry his sacred word that places women as property and says that you can own slaves. So, like, I feel like there's a major difference between the two.
Yeah.
Additionally,
absolutely.
the fact that the Christians can't seem to agree on what the absolute and objective morality is. Like, they'll all agree that it's wrong to kill babies for fun. And I love they have to put that qualifier on there, because they can't just come right out and say it's wrong to kill babies because moral atrocities. But I digress. But beyond that, they'll argue, is it justified to kill in self-defense? Well, in one passage, Jesus says yes. In one passage, Jesus says no. And the prophets all have a mixed bag of ideas. So the Christians are confused. And they fight actual wars over this shit, or at least they used to. It blows my freaking mind that they can say there's an absolute and objective morality that comes from God, and we know the truth of God through revelation, but none of them can agree on what the limits of that morality are.
Yeah, not to mention that it seems to be a baseless assertion to say that it's objective because it comes from a God. They can't seem to demonstrate that it is in fact objective, because when you sort of have objective things, so subjective just means stance dependent. Like, if you have a stance on something, like, everybody in the world could agree that ice cream is nice, but that isn't a subjective thing. It's based upon your stance of what it's like. You can show objective things. You can say, hey, this rock is stance independent. It doesn't matter whether you think it's there or not. It's going to be there. So objective things, you should be able to show that they are consistent for everybody, but they can't seem to show it. So when you hear this objective morality from a God, it's important to understand that they're just claiming it. It is a claim that has not been demonstrated one iota. Like, they just claim it. Can you show us that this morality is in fact objective? Because, as Ember said, when your theists and your priests start to look at what is this objective morality, they all get different responses, which shouldn't happen with something objective. If you have the speed of light, people will agree on it. They'll go, oh yes, we investigated, found this. That is not what's happening with their morality. So how is it objective? Why is it objective? And can they demonstrate that it actually is? Now, don't be fooled. If they say, oh, but if it's not objective, then anyone can do whatever they want. Number one, have you seen the fucking world we're living in? That's number one, right? Number two, that's an appeal to consequence. It's basically saying, oh, because I don't like the consequences of this thing not being true, then it's not true. Well, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter if the world is, doesn't have an objective morality to it because that's uncomfortable for you, or people could do whatever, or it doesn't make sense to you. That doesn't matter. What is and what isn't. And if there is no objective morality, to me, that makes our subjective moral systems so much more important. It's like somebody saying, well, if the law's not objective, people could just go and do whatever they want, out there kind of thing. Well, yeah, they can. And then the law catches up with them afterwards. It doesn't make it not important.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking with the argument from consequence. My monitor's broken. You two are both completely green, and it looks like a 1986 VGA monitor right now. But it's working well enough to do the show, so it's whatever. But it upsets me, and so therefore it can't be true. And yet here's my monitor still doing. It's ignoring my needs. How dare?
Right, and that's the argument from consequence.
Well, look. Yeah, look, my favorite color is green. So if I'm green on your monitor, that's good for me.
Fair enough, but be warned. As the sages have foretold, it's not easy being green.
Kermit. Mm-hmm. Such words of wisdom.
Way more profound than the other guy who sounds like that.
Yeah.
Moral criticism is meaningless. It's just his opinion. Internally to the biblical worldview, it is consistent. God, by definition, commits no moral error. That's not a weakness. That's a strength in the Christian worldview.
Which definition? I've read this thing a couple of times. I can see like post-flood, for example, where the flood itself, God regretted making humans and so decided to wipe out the world. Was it a moral error before when he made humans, or was it a moral error after? And then he regrets the flood, and his all-powerful ass doesn't use his all-powerful capabilities to undo it. Instead, he puts a fucking rainbow in the sky and says, here, have some colors. I promise I won't murder you again. By flood. Some terms and conditions apply. Like, what do you mean he's incapable of moral error? He says he's capable of moral error.
Don't worry, he's gonna burn you with the fire from the sky later.
Yeah.
So he's just gonna go the opposite direction.
Well, it's just a definition trick. Joel's just doing a definition trick. He's saying, well, whatever God does is moral, so God makes no moral errors. Well, yeah, if you define everything he does as moral, of course he makes no moral errors. If I define everything I do as moral, I'll say, hey, I've made no moral errors. I've stolen and done all of these horrible things, but everything I do is moral. It's just a definition trick. That's all it is. It's just a word trick.
Isn't that the divine command theory?
Yes.
Like, it's just as long as God commands it, then that makes it moral.
Yeah, never mind. I just told you thou shalt not kill. I'm telling you now, go kill every man, woman, and child except the virgin girls, which you keep for yourselves, except for, the usual 1 in 500 that you sacrifice to me. Because child sacrifice is a thing that we do, and there's no moral problem with that. It's just fucking wild.
That's divine command theory for you.
And also shellfish are bad. And so is bacon. And no mixed fabrics. And a few other rules.
He accuses the Christian, myself, of circularity for my trust in the Bible. He will completely miss the point. Every worldview rests on ultimate foundations. The question is, which foundation makes sense? Which foundation makes reason, morality, and science possible? Okay, so to summarize my argument.
I'm not sure that's true. Like we could base our models on certain ultimate concepts, but they're always tentative. They're always pending further review and additional information, because we're very aware of the reification fallacy, which is don't confuse the model for reality. And what we've got here is Joel going, look, I have a model based on this, which isn't actually based on this. But never mind that. I have a model, and therefore this is true. And when there's a conflict, reality is what's wrong. Like, that's not how that works. Like, when there's a conflict, you're supposed to go with reality and amend your model, because otherwise you're not dealing with reality. Like, there's a utility, there's a reason we do that. It's crazy town.
Intelligibility obtains, meaning it is real, it is true. To deny it is to affirm it, that is self-evident. All 6 preconditions of intelligibility presuppose God. Atheism cannot account for intelligibility. Therefore,
okay, so he's God, mixing up presupposing, right? If he's saying these are the reasons why we believe in God, he's not presupposing. What he's actually doing, but trying to make it seem like he's not doing it, is he's front-loading the God's true up front, and then saying, well, it accounts for all of these things, so the fact that it was true is confirmed by these things. This is a completely wild way to do epistemology, because what you're doing in epistemology is basically what you're doing is you're saying, how do I come to the knowledge of these things? How do I start with my consciousness and then find out what is real? What he's doing is saying, I'm going to assume this is real up front for no reason whatsoever. That's the presupposition. And then I'm going to confirm it's real with these things I see around me, which is a wild way to do epistemology. It's sort of antithetical to everything we think about. Wow, you could do the same with literally anything. Like, I could presuppose a magic unicorn, and look, the laws of logic, maths, all of this stuff support the magic unicorn because it accounts for it. Of course it does. Of course it's going to.
Yeah. Have you tried looking at the trees?
Yeah.
Behold.
Oh shit, the trees, you say? Yeah, trees. Holy fuck.
I know.
Haven't thought of the trees yet.
I've never looked at arbor before. The arbory.
Does that make us arbarians?
Maybe.
Exists. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to our debate.
Oh, thank you for stopping.
Thank you.
Okay, 7 minutes. Holy shit.
Yeah,
I'm only noting the time so we know about how long your opening will be. Assuming they're about the same. 7-8 minutes, somewhere around there.
yeah.
But I don't think you go the entire time.
No, I mean, I feel like there's definitely a disparity in how Joel is presented and then how I'm presented. And like, Joel's presented in a very positive light, and then I'm just sort of nonchalantly like presented. And I feel like that there's a massive disparity there that kind of maybe shows a bias, but I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm listening too much into it.
Well,
possibly.
I think, yeah, I don't know. It to me, presup is, it's not there to convince anybody who doesn't already believe in a God, because you've got to front load the God up front. You've got to basically say, well, we presuppose this is the precondition for intelligibility, and you've got to assume that up front. It will not convince atheists. It's not designed to. I think that it is designed for people who already believe to reconfirm what they believe, right? That, hey, I was justified all along. But if you don't, like the argument, unless you presuppose the God is responsible for intelligibility and all this other stuff, it just sounds like nonsense. Like, it really does. You have to believe that up front.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I've done breakdowns of tag and presup and things a few different times, but to summarize, basically a person using tag, to me, and for good logical reason that I'm not going to get into right now, but to me, it strikes as, I don't actually have an argument, so I'm going to play Mad Libs. And you could put anything in that slot. You could say there must be a
Yes.
necessary moral grounding to the universe or whatever the fuck. And you could say, yo mama. Yo mama is the necessary moral grounding of the universe. It's...
T-Jump did something similar to that. He sort of appealed to, he had the Church of the Best Possible World, and he sort of appealed to some unknown moral force or sort of some unknown moral naturalistic, like a quantum field kind of thing, but for morality, that he appealed to and just slotted it in the exact same place, and it worked exactly the same. And people have done this before. I know another guy, our Breakfast Taco, that sort of says, oh, it's just we presuppose the naturalistic, atheistic universe with a morality grounded in naturalism. It's very easy to do exactly the same thing. It's just Joel will reject those because, as John said, he's special pleading for his God, that it's not begging the question and asserting things that haven't been demonstrated for him because it's a God.
Yeah, but Mark, it's revealed. Have you read?
Look, when I asked Joel, I think it was Joel. It was either Joel or his Wi-Fi gospel friend. Why the Bible is true? He said that the Bible is self-fulfilling. The reason why you can trust the Bible is because of the Bible. It is literally a circle with these guys.
Yeah, and I even mentioned that, like, in the chance I get to rebut his opening statement, I do mention the circularness of presuppositionalism or the tag argument in general. But like, I just want to point out that Alex or Wi-Fi Gospel is the one that's running the stream for Joel there, and like, I had to do, like, on my own version of it, like I had to do like a bunch of like sound correction on it because like they had like his voice wasn't matching up with what's being like said on screen and everything, like so I was trying to match things between like two different streams and everything. So like he's definitely very deeply integrated with Alex or Wi-Fi Gospel, and they just run the exact same argument. So it's like I knew exactly what they were going to say, but I thought that it would be more powerful, and I guess you'll see this here in a little bit. But I thought it would be more powerful to just be like, we have like explanations for this. These are the concepts that explain it. I'm going to go on and actually address the question of the debate. And some people think that was a good idea. Some people don't. I don't know. I don't mean to sound like Donald Trump when I say that, but it's like, it's like, people have just different opinions about how to address it.
Yeah, like, I mean, talking about the thing that's the subject of the debate, to me, seems like a better strategy than declaring things and not ever talking about the subject of the debate.
He didn't even get to the Christian God.
No.
Not at all. Like, in his entire debate, it was just about establishing that some asshole exists that controls everything. Like, that's it. That's the only thing that he established. And like, he never gets close to a Christian God. He just asserts it as if it's just supposed to be some kind of foregone conclusion. And like, it's not.
Yeah. And that's what precepts do. It is a foregone. That is literally what precept is. It's a foregone conclusion. That's literally what it is.
Yeah. Which is why there's no point talking to them, because like they ultimately it is the circle. It's premise one, God exists, and everything else is built on that. And so there's no point even talking to them, because they walk in with premise one being their damn conclusion. Like there's no possibility for constructive discourse. There's no possibility for good faith intellectual engagement. It's bad faith from the outset. It's I have my conclusion and I will not discuss it. Well, then why are you here discussing things, my friend?
Can be pretty funny though.
Yeah.
I can have a lot of fun with them though. I gotta admit,
Oh,
like,
for sure.
It can be I mean, I've interacted with Joel and seeing him like backpedal is hilarious. It really is.
Yeah, the conversation you had with Sai, Did he rage quit? I forget. I remember.
Yeah, Sai dropped out. Well, he got Sai in to deal with me, and then like Sai tapped out after a little bit. After he said that it was a spiral, and I started laughing. I mean, how are you not supposed to when you say that's circular, and he goes, "No, it's a spiral," and it's like, my guy, like seriously, how are you supposed to deal with that?
I don't know, but a spiral seems way worse. Sorry, Ember, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, it seems like laughter to me. I mean, okay, so a while back when Dave Warnock was still doing his show on the line, they sent me over a call that he and Stacy from Stacy's Mom Podcast took and said, Ember, we got a pre-sup. I'm not sure how we handled it. Would you take a look and let us know your thoughts? And I actually titled the video, Laugh at Them. To me, that's the correct response.
Yeah. And, you know, as far as Psy goes and all that, I was at the Matt Dillahunty versus Psy 10 like debate in like live debate in Memphis, and like it was totally I guess unconvincing on Psy's side, because Psy thought that he could come with like a prepared statement and everything like that. That was the general presuppositionalist sort of statement, but like Matt knew exactly how he was going to respond to him or the things that he was going to say. So like apparently he wrote the entire debate on the plane ride to Memphis. Yeah. So it's like I totally agree that it's pointless to debate these presuppositionalists because they always make the exact same arguments that are not supported by stuff. I mean, that's just how it is.
Well, the real dirty thing that Sky did in that one was put clips of Matt Dillahunty taken completely out of context and, you know, just short clips of him and like argue against that instead of his actual arguments in the debate. Like, it's just sort of a really dodgy thing to do. If you're going back to like taking a clip, like if you want to say, hey, in the past you've said this, do you still agree with that? Well, that's fair. But if you're just taking a clip from you talking to someone on the phone and no context around it, nor the question that they asked when they rang up, you know, atheist experience with the clips that he took, and just using that, especially the hard solipsism one, because Matt said, well, I think I'm a bit of a solipsist. He's just talking off the, like, it was so dodgy, you know, like it was just so slimy thing to do. And like Matt just didn't justify it with an answer. He's like, look, they're just clips of me talking. What are you doing? And he's right. Like, it's just like Sai's really bad, really, really dishonest character in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. But you know, pizza sleeps fast under the West, therefore the much. And you really can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Literally.
So much for that amazing opening statement. Thank you for your candor. With that concludes Joel's opening statement. So we can now move on to Godless Engineer's opening statement, where he will get his 8-minute opener. Your 8 minutes will start whenever you say your first word, Godless.
Okay, real quick. The reason John is so very tiny is because this is taken from Joel's version of the broadcast, because Joel's picture didn't come through on the main broadcast. So the only picture of Joel natively is from Joel's broadcast, because he couldn't figure out how to share his camera or something, whatever. And because he doesn't know what he's doing, and Wi-Fi Gospel had to run it remotely, they ended up with like a tiny screen being shared. So Joel is big, and then everything else is a tiny box, and then even tinier boxes here.
Yeah, if I can provide some context. So like this was a debate that was done over TikTok.
Oh.
And so Joel is, I guess, technologically inept as far as TikTok goes. And so like he was trying to figure shit out. Like they were trying to use like some account that like the host had set up for people, but you know, they got locked out of it and stuff. So like I mean, they were trying their best to do it, but at the same time, it was like, it just shows that Joel is inept at like adapting to technology, and that's how it came off to me, at least.
Well, technical problems happen, sure. Yeah, I generally don't hold that against people because I've had my share, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make him wrong. Like, there's all of us have things we just don't know how to do because we haven't done them much, and that's fine. But like, I don't know, if you want to be the front man on an internet channel, particularly one that wants to engage with people regularly, like a debate-centered channel, maybe it's worth taking a minute to figure out what the hell you're doing.
Well, actually, yeah, you're right. I want to revise that. You're correct, Ember, because he has a producer to do this stuff for him. Right, we're doing this stuff just us throwing it together like absolute apes on the internet, which we are. But like, we're just tossing whatever in and doing our own stuff. He's got a literal producer doing stuff for him. So yeah, that does change situation. You're right, Ember. You're right.
I mean, just my opinion. It's hardly objective and absolute, and
well, I think it reflects more badly on Alex, Wi-Fi Gospel, as his producer than himself, quite frankly.
Right.
Shots fired, Alex. I'm happy to debate you again.
I know.
Mate.
I wasn't gonna come for Alex, but like, this is StreamYard, and here we're on Restream. I've got different setups that I can do. I have clicky buttons, and I can change the orientation. StreamYard has those too. And you don't have to have just the tiny, like, you can do it in a bunch of different ways. And on StreamYard, you can even create your own layout. So it can be whatever proportions you want. And they go with tiny box. The default when you share a thing, it just, it bugs me a little is all. That's, yeah.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. I really appreciate this chance to debate this topic. Although I did prepare my opening statement to only handle the Christian God claim and not just a general God claim or general deity claim, because it was my understanding that we were debating the Christian God, which so that's what I wrote mine for. So none of my opening statement is going to be in response to Joel's opening statement, just to set the stage there. So for years, I lived my life thinking that God existed. I didn't question whether this God existed. I then started to question things and examine the religious arguments in response to the questions I had, and I found them to be insufficient. And me being a Christian, that's why this applies here. And God did not warrant any belief that he or she existed. That's the conclusion I came to. This is the primary reason why many people believe God probably doesn't exist. The lack of sufficient evidence for God's existence should lead anyone to doubt whether or not he actually exists. I don't claim to know whether or not God doesn't exist, but based on the evidence, belief in such a deity is not warranted, especially the Christian God. And what I'm going to do is briefly.
Right, and that's a really good way to tie it into the standard model of argumentation, because every video is somebody's first video. So quick rundown. Your normal argumentation model, you've got your claim, and then you've got your evidence, the supporting evidence. That's the ground. And then you need the warrant to connect the claim to the ground. If you don't have that connection, then your argument is unwarranted.
Right. I think I would have, just as a suggestion, tied it into the Christian claim of God wants people to know they exist. Right, because the claim that they have is that the Christian God wants people to know that they exist. So you can make it even, like, don't get me wrong, it's at the moment it's kind of anecdotal, but you can put that up against, well, if the God wants me to know that I exist, that he exists, then he provides so little evidence for it, and he would know that that's insufficient, but doesn't. So you can sort of tie it into that sort of premise that a God wants people to know he exists, is omnipotent, could provide evidence, but does not. That's logically inconsistent.
Yep, that's...
Yeah, I guess my thought process for this very very brief opening segment was just sort of like, I guess, humanizing myself a little bit, like saying like, hey, I used to believe, and I didn't really have good reasons for believing, and it wasn't until I investigated this that I started to drift away and all this other stuff. So like, I'm convinced away because of the lack of evidence, I guess, is kind of how I was wanting to approach this, at least initially, before I get into like my main arguments.
Well, that's fine, and humanizing is great. That's why, they suggest trying to make a joke at the start, and there's some other stuff around that. But just be caution of, well, this is just anecdotal evidence kind of thing, because even if you had an experience that you thought there was a God and deconverted, it isn't really tying that bow on, well, this is good evidence that doesn't exist, because that is just an anecdote. But if you can tie it into, well, the God wants me to know that it exists, and going through life I get a lot of evidence that it doesn't, that's contradictory for an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God. It just, doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's a better argument, because it doesn't rely on that anecdotal evidence. And you can also tie in, the majority of people on the planet that find insufficient evidence. Even though it does veer into an ad populum, you can say, well, it doesn't make sense that the God wants us all to know that he exists and doesn't even try to let us know. It's a problem.
It hasn't even been seen in 2,000 years. But you know what we have seen recently? A super chat from Jester, Lord of Fools, secret Lord of Fools. He doesn't make a big deal about it anymore. Thank you so much, Jester. And he says, Gleason! I think he may be a fan, John.
Yeah.
Jester is awesome.
Yep.
I love seeing Jester in the comments.
Some shenaniganery is afoot.
That's right. As I understand it, it's your fault that I have a Jester infestation, because I was in one of your chats and Jester saw me in the distance and went, "Who's that crazy person? Surely I must know more," or something like that. If I have the story straight.
That's awesome to hear. I love being able to be the connecting force in the community. So I totally love that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of why, hell, that's the central thesis of why you do what you do, to, stand up and use your voice, because you didn't have someone, so you want there needs to be visibility so other people know and people can come together and meet each other, and we have a fucking community. Just it's a song very close to my own heart. Yes.
Explain why the existing evidence for the Christian God is insufficient. So there are generally three traits attributed to the Christian God: omnipotence, omniscience, and omnibenevolence. Other attributes such as timelessness and immutability are also commonly attributed to God by many Christians. I'm not exactly sure where Joel lies on this, but again, I had to write this in general. God is defined in such a way that he is self-contradictory. And if the Bible is representative of God's nature and history, he can only be a subset of these attributes. I see the Bible as a requirements document. And if God doesn't measure up to his requirements, then that version of God simply doesn't exist. So omnibenevolence, I'm going to use this one particular attribute in order to show how God cannot be all the omni properties at once. He can only be a certain subset, which is a violation of the requirements set forth by the Bible and by Christian theology. The Bible contains many instances where God violates either his omnibenevolence or, as a result, some other omni trait. For example, in Numbers 31, it has God commanding the Israelites to unalive women, children, and babies in addition to the men. One group is spared, and that's the young virgin girls who are subsequently forced into sexual slavery via forced marriages. So if God is omnipotent and omniscient, then he could have done something more humane, and he knew what he could have done, but chose to slaughter women, children, and babies.
Right. Like we were talking a bit about this earlier, but also like so many other instances, another person in the community that many of us found through your channel was Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels, who famously posited to Gospelologian Joel Ensley, could God not kill children? Being all-powerful, why did he have to do the flood the way he did?
Right.
And, on top of that, if you as a God, being all-powerful and all the things, if you did the same thing he did and just killed one less child, you are more moral than the supposedly a pinnacle of morality in being form, albeit timeless and spaceless and all that. And
no, this is a good argument. It forces Joel to either say, well, he couldn't do that, it had to be that way, or that was a good thing, which is usually what they rest in, which is, it's an excuse, but it's also horrific to see live, when somebody goes, oh, well, no, those babies went straight to heaven, it was a good thing that they died in the flood. It's like, okay, now that's horrific. It actually works very well, so I do like this one.
That's my cue to play the very brief supercut of apologists saying horrific things. It's only 42 seconds. I'm still adding clips as I find them. If you find a cool clip, send it to me. But anyway, here we go.
It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with God.
Carl, that kills people.
I have a problem with this stuff being normalized across the spectrum, and specifically, like, why push this on kids? Why introduce this to kids?
I want to be ignorant, honestly.
If God is not good, then guess what? We are all absolutely screwed.
Stop letting people pressure you into thinking
I think some of those were taken out of context, but very funny, yes.
Not all that much. Like the one
I love that.
The most out of context is Alan Parr, because it looks like there's more sentence, but the thing is there isn't. Like I was on
Really?
the Humanity Live the other night, and that's from a short. He cuts right after thinking. There is no more to that sentence.
Wow.
I mean, and I think that you should add to that. Well, I mean, maybe not, because it's pretty much the exact same thing. But like, there's like an actual college lecture that William Lane Craig is giving, where he talks about how the best thing for the pagan children of the Midianites is to be killed.
Yeah.
And like, that's the best outcome for them, because like they won't grow up like worshiping some other god. They'll just immediately be killed.
Yep.
And like, it's so radical to me to think that people are like, yeah, it's better to die than to like have a different faith.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that one, and it is horrifying. So that's, and a lot of this was, done in various debates where you get them in this corner where they have to admit that all the horrific stuff in the Bible is a good thing. And, that's part of, I hope you go on to the problem of evil, but, even just setting this up as you've got to defend this action by God, even though it is repugnant to all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's great.
What's that phrase? If you can be made to believe absurdities, you can be made to commit atrocities.
Yeah.
It's not quite right, but it's close. But it is quite right. A super chat from Left-Handed Jedi for $20. Thank you very much, Jedi. Yeah. Woohoo. And Jedi says, I stand by my hypothesis that if God is timeless, spaceless, and all that jazz, it is by definition a Lovecraftian horror like Azathoth. Which is a mouthful to say. I'm such a nerd, I wanted to say Azeroth. It's a
Isn't
World of Warcraft thing.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah. But thank you, Jedi. And also, Miranda Rensberger sending $10 to remind us, thank you, Miranda, that you could add some Joel Webben to the Apologist Being Terrible montage. Literally, every time he opens his mouth, something horrific comes out. That's
Haven't heard of
fun.
that guy.
I don't recognize the name, but I'm not sure.
He's a horrible Christian nationalist that's
Ugh.
like he literally went on a podcast and he was like, there were people of other faiths at the pool. And I don't know how to explain that to my children.
Oh, he's pulling a Snoop Dogg. There were gay people in the movie I watched.
Oh,
Oh
this guy sounds
no.
like a nightmare.
Yeah. Whatever shall I
He
do?
is. He literally is. And like that's mainstream right-wing propaganda right now
Yeah.
in America, and it's scary.
Yeah. It is. It really, really is.
Force young girls into sexual slavery. If he's not able to prevent the Israelites from doing this to the Midianites, then he's not omnipotent. I find this hard to believe when Leviticus 19:27 specifically has God issuing beard grooming requirements. But you mean to tell me that he can't tell the Israelites not to murder babies? If he doesn't know a more humanistic way of accomplishing his goals, then he's not omniscient. He can only be two of the three. He cannot be all three at the same time. Another issue for omnibenevolence is God's use and normalization of chattel slavery in the Bible. Leviticus 25:44 through 46 has God endorsing and issuing guidance on how to practice chattel slavery, which is a practice we universally consider abhorrent now. It seems like God either did.
It's written on our hearts, you might say, that slavery is wrong.
Yeah.
And yet, ye old book, it not only says it's okay, it gives you rules for how to do it. Oh,
well, it's really odd because they sort of appeal to presentism, which is like, oh, well, they didn't know at the time and God was guiding them through it. But that's relative morality. That means it changes depending on what's God's stance of it. If they can't understand it, God's stance is, well, we'll put these rules around it. If they learn some new things, God's stance is, well, now it's completely illegal. That's relative. That's subjective morality. Like, what the hell?
I get in this debate, I get charged with presentism.
Of course.
Okay.
Of
At least
course.
once.
Because,
Well,
God can say,
yeah.
thou shalt not kill, period. Thou shalt not commit adultery, period. Thou shalt not eat the shellfish or the pork or plant two
Mixed
kinds of crops
threads,
next to each other.
yeah.
Like, understanding isn't necessary. It's just a command. But for some reason, for slavery, that's too much to ask. I mean, what about the economy, though? Well,
not practicing slavery in this economy?
Exactly. Have you seen the price of whips? I mean, never mind that. The churches are very economic vehicles, though, aren't they? Like, there's that whole thing, the whole tithe thing. That's all Old Testament. I looked it up just the other day. The only thing Paul says about tithing is it should be a as you will because you want to kind of thing. God loves a cheerful giver, Paul says. So that's all Old Testament. Yahweh was all like 10% bitches or get out. But you know who else is a fan of tithing? Jester, Lord of Fools, who sends $5. Thank you so much, Jester. And says farmers are asking for bailouts to the issues they voted to have.
Yeah, they voted to have.
They voted to have. Anywho, been looking forward to seeing 3 of my favorites in one damn stream. It's an unholy trinity up in here.
Yeah, this definitely is a damned stream according to the Christians. Absolutely, we're thrice damned over here.
Oh, I need a different background. I should have got us like a burning in hell kind of thing. Sadly, at the moment, I've only got the moving at light speed or the not moving at light speed. I mean, we could do the feminism background. That's a pretty one, but it really doesn't suit the debate. So we'll stick with space for right now.
know this was a disgusting practice, which nixes omniscience, or he didn't see it as an inhumane practice, which nixes omnibenevolence, or he was unable to issue a command to not partake in slavery, which nixes omnipotence. Considering that in Deuteronomy 22:8, God essentially plays an ancient OSHA inspector requiring guardrails on rooftops, you would think he'd be able to tell the Israelites not to keep chattel slaves. Again, God cannot be all three omni-properties at once. At best, he can be two of them. God also seems not to understand that women are not property. Even in his supposed 10 commandments, he lists women as property amongst chattel slaves. He built his chosen people from the descendants of Jacob, who later became known as, later became known as Israel. Jacob purchased 2 daughters of Laban and then proceeded to grape their servant girls and force them to give birth to some of the tribes of Israel, in addition to both Leah and Rachel giving him children. If God were omniscient, omnibenevolent, and omnipotent, he would know that this is human trafficking, rape, and sexual slavery. And he'd know how to prevent all 3 of these human rights violations. He would also have the ability and authority to expect Jacob to follow his demands. Instead, God naked wrestled him in the desert and renames him to Israel to create his favored race of people. Now, on to the Bible as the Word of God. Another claim generally made by Christians is that the Bible is the Word of God or is directly inspired by God. That cannot be the case if God is omniscient. The Bible is not a reliable...
Minor note, but that also cannot be the case if the Christian God is true, because we have 4 Gospels, and they all tell different versions of the story. Some of them contradictory, like is the door open when the women arrive, or is it closed? How many angels are there? Are there any angels, etc.? We've all heard the litany of contradictions, and if it is inspired by an all-knowing, infallible, incapable of error being who is also omnipotent and therefore has the power to do exactly what he wills, then either those errors are there on purpose, or he's not able to, it isn't inspired. It's just, no, either way, it doesn't work. Christianity rules itself out on that premise alone.
Source of historical information, except for superficial references to names and places. Events like the Israelites' conquest of Jericho did not occur as the Bible claims. The Exodus did not happen as described by the Bible or in any absolute sense. The Genesis accounts of creation are anti-scientific and do not accurately represent what we know about the universe, let alone the earth.
Yeah, that's a personal favorite. Yeah. The earth was created before the sun. Day was created before the sun. Like, it's wild. And I've heard apologists, even Hugh Ross, the former astrophysicist, is like, oh, well, only the Bible gets the order of creation right in the creation myth. Hugh, have you read this thing? Have you looked? Have you gone through? I don't know what translation he's got, but you're a physicist, my guy. What do you mean the order is correct? But that's just one example. I get, you're opening, you have a limited amount of time. You have to just put the facts on the table. But there's a lot of meat in each one of these things. And that is an interesting difference between your opening and Joel's opening. Because Joel is just declaring things. You're putting things on the table that can each be explored and dug into and demonstrated fully. Joel's is just assertions. And that's a stark difference. On substance, you might say. Put a pin in that, it'll come up.
And I just want to point out, like, he creates plants before the sun. What did they photosynthesize?
Yeah, it's a starlight. Were they before the stars? It's been a minute. I forget.
No, they were before the stars too. Yeah, no, they were before the stars, because of course they were.
Well,
of course they were.
On whether you're reading Genesis 1 or Genesis 2.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
they have a different order. Both chapters. It's it's wild. It's wild.
Itself. The patriarchs of the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament, are not historical figures, but rather mythical explanations that rewrite the Israelites' history, repositioning them as instead of representing them as an offshoot of the Canaanites. If God is omniscient, then he lied to his chosen people who recorded his version of events. If God is directly lying to his chosen people, that means he's not omnibenevolent. If God isn't lying to his people, then he's not omniscient. If he's unable to reveal the whole truth to his people for one reason or another, that means he's not omnipotent. Christians find themselves in between a rock and a hard place. And additionally, I think the divine hiddenness argument, as well as the problem of evil, is a pretty big issue for the Christian God. If God is omnibenevolent, if he's all loving, and he definitely wants a personal relationship with people, then you would definitely think that he would want to reveal himself in some kind of way that would develop that relationship. If he's going to require this personal relationship with him in order to get into the magical mansion in the sky, you would think that a good God would definitely reveal himself in a way that would convince people, but yet he chooses to remain hidden and he plays coy with people instead. And then there's the problem of evil. If God is really omnibenevolent, then and he's omniscient, then he can in the world. I'm not talking about suffering that person causes on another. I'm talking about the suffering of like
those glitches are in
Is
the
that
copy. It appears
right?
Joel is having, because again, this copy is taken from Joel, so we can see Joel's freaking face as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But it seems like he's dropping packets, I believe is the term.
Right. Okay.
I did not know that was there, or I would have used a different copy, even with Joel's face being a circle. We have a friend. John and I met a person who is a circle. The skeptic.
Really?
Yes, the skeptic.
Yeah. He's a British floating circle that makes fun of people saying silly things. Oh, I didn't catch your audio there, Mark. You're still out. Are you muted? Did you tap the wire or something?
Hello?
We broke Mark.
Hello?
There you are. Okay.
Oh, I am. Okay. Wow. Okay, that's
got-
interesting. No, I didn't actually. I was actually leaning back. I didn't go anywhere near it. That's weird. Yeah, is this circle two-dimensional? Because three-dimensional is technically a sphere. I just want to point that out.
It's two-dimensional.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
His meat form is three-dimensional, but he only breaks that out when he has to do offline. So, he's hosted on a couple ACA shows, or at least co-hosted. I forget which, but it's not important right now.
I really got to get him on the Atheist Experience, because like, I don't know. I feel like, just about anybody's good enough to be on the Atheist Experience, especially though, skeptic. Like, he's great.
Yeah, well, I try to judge people by their arguments and not by their geometry. Just saying.
I mean, he does make circular arguments definitionally.
I do got to go and use the restroom real quick, but I want you guys to watch like the rest of my opening and everything. I'm trying not to like affect y'all's opinion or whatnot about like my opening too much, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, cool, mate.
And Miranda's pointing out he was also on Holy Spirits. Yes, that's
oh, cool.
Holy Spirits is another fun show. Dr. Ben, whom you may recall from various call-in shows, as well as his own Medical Myths program, set up Holy Spirits. It's like Drunk History, but with holy stories, and it's great. It's hilarious. It's wonderful. Mods, feel free to drop a link to that so people can find it. If by chance you can't, that along with over 100 other channels that I wish I'd known about sooner are linked on my website, betterthanember.com, under the creators tab. My links are on the front page. It's like my link tree, but the creator tab has all the skeptical creators and science friends and so forth that I wish I'd known about. So if you're trying to find somebody, they're probably on that list. And if they're not, let me know so I can add them, because I wish I'd known about them sooner. There's probably more.
The who's who of skepticism. Yeah.
That's right. I'm trying to, have a useful resource for the community. It's, because that's why we're doing lives, is to interact with the community, to, we could record these, but this is much more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
disease. I'm talking about the suffering of like starvation, not caused by any individual, but just starvation because of some area is poor, some area can't produce enough food to feed people or whatnot. There's also many parasites that God apparently constructed in order to infest living organisms and cause the most amount of pain possible. So it seems like the problem of suffering and evil, this unnecessary and unhuman or non-human caused suffering, that should be something that God could easily solve. But he's either not omnipotent, not omniscient, or not omnibenevolent.
Yeah, and this is
Sorry,
probably this is probably the strongest argument of why God doesn't exist, at least not the Christian God, the tri-omni God kind of thing, or even maximally powerful. It's because of these natural evils. And Alex O'Connor does a fantastic thing talking about animal suffering, but even without it, like why have, malaria infecting babies kind of thing that takes their lives on an unimaginable scale, kind of like it is just wild that you would introduce something like that into the world, and it causes a lot of other questions depending on how they go for the problem of evil, whether they're saying, oh well, that's all good because they get to go to heaven. Well, number one, it's horrific, and number two, if it's so good, why are we so desperate to cure these natural evils? Why are we so desperate to stop viruses if that is a good thing? It really pins them in a corner where they have to just say, well, it's good, or God isn't necessarily good. He is capable of visiting evils upon us. So this is probably the strongest argument, and I love that John's got it in here. Absolutely. I always love seeing the problem of evil come up, because the Christians will just flat out say, oh, that's been debunked, but they'll never say how.
Mm-hmm. It's
strangely enough.
There's so much evidence, and then they never present evidence. It drives me bonkers. I've been at this for about 3 years now, and I have heard, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard there's so much evidence, I wouldn't have to monetize my channel. I'd just be rich, but I have yet to see the evidence they speak of.
Yeah.
I'll just finish the last sentence, but if that was it.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that'll be it. My main target here was analyzing the requirements for the Christian God being all these omni traits, and just simply analyzing the omni traits. God seems to fail his requirements.
Okay, and then we'll cut it there. So that will be the two openers for both of the contestants. We're now going to move on to 5.
Okay, so that concludes the openings. My thoughts we mostly covered as we went along. Overall, GE dropped a whole lot of substance with some meat that you can dig into. Joel made a whole lot of claims that fall apart immediately upon any scrutiny at all. Maybe I'm biased, but that's how it looks to me.
Well, it only works for Joel if you presuppose a God up front. If you're presupposing that God already exists, that's the only way that presup works. If you're going from how do we know this God actually exists, or is the foundations of intelligibility, it falls over completely, because there's no way we can test that. There's no way we can falsify it. There's no way for anybody to investigate that at all. It's just a claim that you have to believe is true up front. And that's the real weak point of his thing. How do you know it's a God is doing this? Well, I presuppose it. I reject your presupposition. Yeah. You have to justify it.
Yeah, and that's the thing they don't seem to understand, is like we use presuppositions to save time, right? Like
Correct.
We don't want to have to take an hour-long debate and use 45 minutes of it to justify why we consider our vision reliable. So we just presuppose that for the sake of argument. But if we have to, we can do that. Like anything that's presupposed isn't just arbitrary. It's done to save time, as a convenience, as a convention, but it can be demonstrated. So this whole presuppositional position of Christianity, where we just assume our thing is true because we say so, that's not a valid presupposition, because it has to be demonstrable. I talked till I'm blue in the face about that thing, but it keeps happening.
If I can just add, my target for the opening statement was hyper focused in on addressing the question that the debate was over, and that's, what, is the Christian God or the God of the Bible like the God that exists, or is it real? And so I geared my opening statement to be like a definitive, as definitive as it could be, statement about how not real that God is, because it's contradictory. I
Yes.
feel like, going back to the basic laws of logic, you can't have some kind of contradictory thing like in existence. Like, it can't be contradictory as part of its nature. And so that's what I was trying to establish there. But obviously, Joel takes it a different direction in his response.
Okay.
Yeah, and you touch on a really important point there. Philosophy is a phenomenal tool for ruling things out, and it can rule out the Christian God for several of the reasons just enumerated. It is an absolute shit tool for ruling things in, because that's not what it's designed to do. It's the best you're going to get trying to misuse it in that fashion is, well, you can't prove it doesn't, which that works for fucking anything. The Blarney Stone and magic universe creating pixies, and also it's logically possible insofar as it's not impossible on logic alone. Once you factor in science or physics, it becomes impossible immediately. But on logic alone, it's not impossible. It's just an abuse of philosophy to try to rule things in that way, It's just my take, though. I'm a silly bean.
5-minute rebuttals. Joel, you'll get 5 minutes to rebuttal to Godless Engineer's opening statement. It starts whenever you say your first word, the 5 minutes.
Yeah, solve the problem of evil in 5 minutes. Good luck, Joel. Good luck.
I know. That's a hell of a challenge.
Pretty much.
We've had 2,000 years plus, because remember, Euthyphro has been around since before Christianity. But
Sure
yeah, I'm sure Joel will pull it off in 5 minutes. Place your bets.
Okay, my opponent has pointed to the supposed lack of compelling evidence. Evidence, reason, science, and morality.
Sorry, hold on 1 second. 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, just making sure. Okay.
Can I start that over?
Yeah.
Okay.
It starts when you say.
Okay. All right. So my opponent has appealed to evidence, as I thought that he would. He says
evidence is a nice thing to have in a debate where you're trying to demonstrate something, but
yeah. And if
evidence,
if he knew you were going to evidence, why didn't he bring up it in his opening?
Mm-hmm.
Cut you off at the knees. That would have been a really good idea, wouldn't it, Joel? Just saying.
I mean, I would have loved for there to be evidence in his opening statement, but we got what we got.
Yeah, we got arguments, not really evidence.
It seems to be the general trend of things, like, my goodness. So I've got so I do a morning show Monday through Friday. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, incidentally. And one of the things scheduled for this week is Sean McDowell asked 100 apologists for their best evidence. And I venture y'all place a bet, but you can probably guess exactly how many of them sent back evidence. It's a nice round figure, but it'll be a fun episode. Do join us if you can.
Nice.
that there's no compelling evidence for God, but this is why in my opener I brought up the requirement for evidence. Let me rephrase that. This is why in my opener I showed that intelligibility presupposes God, because evidence, reason, science, and morality, which he appealed to, all require God as their foundation. Christianity.
Evidence requires God now too.
It needs God. Like, he's just making assertions. That's just begging the question. That is just saying, hey, God exists to provide you with these things. The conclusion is that God exists, so you're begging the question. You're literally assuming the truth of that statement without actually demonstrating its validity or soundness. Like, what the hell is he doing? Presup. He's doing presup. I shouldn't ask that question.
I mean, well, as our lawyer friend Mr. Anderson often points out, a good lawyer only asks questions they already know the answer to. You would be a good lawyer. You already knew the answer to your question.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
you know who else knows the answer to their own question? Jester, who sends a $5 super chat. Thank you, Jester. And he says, I'll bet $5 that he'll succeed in 2 hours. Maybe I should stop gambling.
Yeah.
You know, I love the tactic that he's taking here in trying to undercut my ability to use evidence by saying God's required for evidence, and not providing any kind of substantiation for this idea that God is required for evidence to be meaningful. It just doesn't make sense to me, at least.
So this is sort of it's just a dodge, essentially. It's just I don't have evidence, so I'm going to go back and undercut everything with God's required for everything, and try and force you to argue that premise that God is required for everything. It's absolutely dodgy, because I think it's J.L. Warren that says, "Can you show me the evidence of your God without begging the question?" Because this is begging. It's saying, "Hey, God is true. Evidence depends on it. Therefore God is true because evidence depends on God." It's like that's your conclusion that you're front loading there.
It's pretty special. And once again, you can slot anything in there. You can say,
Correct.
Yo mama runs the universe because evidence depends on it. Look at the evidence. Look at the trees. Look at the quanta, the little photons running around through space. It all depends on yo mama. She sure gets around.
Uniquely provides this foundation. So what you heard tonight was exactly what I predicted. My opponent expressed his disgust or his abhorrence with.
He didn't say anything about evidence in his opening. Oh, I predicted it because I made a claim that I didn't say up front. Like, if you predicted it, you would say in your opening. Like you brought up that Saitem Brogancate that Matt Delahunty sort of said, "Hey, I predict this" in the opening, and he nailed him on it. What the hell, Joel? You're just claiming that you predicted it without actually doing any kind of. Maybe he did something on his channel. I don't know.
No. His prediction is John is going to use evidence. Oh shit!
Yeah,
he's going to use evidence. That's such a fucking prophecy, Nostradamus.
That's right. He is the anointed one we've all been waiting for. Behold. But no, he's using predicted in the same way. This is predictions. It's full of prophecy and things, like Isaiah, which tells about all the things that happened 400 years after they happened. But they're predictions, though, saying something after the fact, but calling it a prediction. Well, that makes it a prediction because you're just declaring things. Reality doesn't matter. The book says a thing.
But it'd be like us going, "Oh, well, I predict that Joel's going to use presuppositional apologetics." It's like, yeah, I've seen Joel's stuff before. Big deal.
Yeah. Oh, for
you know what that is, Joel? That's induction. That's what that is. I used induction to know that you would use presuppositional apologetics because of all of the times in the past you've used presuppositional Oh boy.
Fern says, "Yo, mama's so fat. The
Mark.
whole universe is contingent upon her existence."
Oh shit, Mark, are you Nostradamus too? There's
No, I'm Nostradamus too. That's what I am. I'm Nostradamus too.
Cursed with Knowledge says, he would say your mom is not triune and eternal, but she can be God your mother, God your mom, and God your mommy.
Ooh.
What now?
Checkmate, Christians.
Yeah. we, and there's evidence. Like, I mean, I can't say for sure, but there's at least 500 witnesses who will attest to the reality of Yo Mama's existence.
The Bible. Let me just say that my opponent's personal feelings about God or about what God does are completely irrelevant to the actual nature of our discussion tonight. And I want the judges, the audience, and my opponent to understand this. Your feelings do not constitute an argument. If you say belief in God.
Okay,
when did you appeal to your feelings? I don't.
Right? Like, no one's saying they are, but also him being the arbiter of what constitutes an argument after that shit show of an opening. Really?
Well, I mean, you can make an argument that, hey, you're doing an appeal to emotion, right? You're doing a, and maybe he's trying to tie it into the idea of, what happened in the Bible that was really horrible is just your feelings about it kind of thing. But he's not, like, just sort of saying you're appealing to your feelings isn't very accurate. I don't. That's weird. That's very weird. What's he talking about? Because it was based upon a lack of evidence, problem of evil, immorality in the Bible. I mean, it's not your feelings that it's immoral. It's that it violates nearly everybody's concept of morality, like that this is immoral. And he could say, hey, that's just your feelings and your ideas about morality. But then the question would be, so that is moral? I don't know what he's talking about. I really don't. I'm struggling to find where your feelings were involved. Because, yeah, you did do sort of an anecdotal, well, I believed in the Bible and then I, didn't. But that's not your feelings. That's the lack of evidence problem. So I don't get what he's talking about unless it's that you're saying the immoral things are immoral and he's trying to say, well, that's just your feelings. Maybe that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. He tries to undercut my position by attacking the objective morality, being that he can be objective or he has objective morality, but yet I don't in some kind of way. And so, like, because and he plays off of, and maybe in retrospect, maybe I should have made more of a point that he's requiring 100% confidence in his conclusions, whereas I'm leaving room for like being wrong or whatnot.
Yeah.
And he tries to portray that as a negative, because I'm not 100% in my knowledge, that means that I am wrong in that kind of false dichotomous way.
But the problem with that is if you claim to have 100% knowledge, you still can be wrong. And that's the problem, right? Like, even if you say, well, I've got 100% knowledge because of God, there's if that's a demon feeding you that knowledge, you're still wrong. It doesn't actually overcome that problem of fallibility. You can still be wrong. So, making a claim that you've got absolute certainty doesn't actually give it to you. Unless you somehow could demonstrate that absolute certainty by being right about everything in your life, but you're certainly not. Nobody is right about everything in their life. So it's a very strange thing to do. I have no idea. I mean, go on, but I've got no idea where the appeal to emotion comes in. I've got no idea.
Yeah, he may explain, but it seems to me that it's an attempt to straw manify what John said, like recast what you just heard as, oh, it's just an appeal to emotion. But even if it were, which it isn't, but if it were, then Joel is not only making a straw man, but he's doing the fallacy, because even if it were an appeal to emotion, that in and of itself does not make it wrong. He still has to refute the argument. But details.
That is not warranted because we find this or that abhorrent today. What you have to do is, you can't just say everybody agrees with this. You have to ground intelligibility, including a transcendent morality by which you could judge God. And you have to do this internal to the Christian world.
No. No, you don't need a transcendent morality in which to judge God, because you're presupposing, you're begging the question with a God. All you need is a morality to judge the actions that people are doing. So morality in a normative sense, so normatively, morality is the code of conduct that would be agreed on by all rational people, right? So it just means a code of conduct. So if basically all rational people agree that what happened in a genocide is wrong, then it is wrong. That's it. Whether that's subjective or objective. So no, you don't need a transcendent thing. But see the way that he's front-loading it? He's saying, hey, you need to have a transcendent morality to show you that a God is wrong. He's already saying that the God exists and that you've accepted that the God exists. Don't forget that presups think that you know that a God exists. Right? You've got to remember this, that they deep down are going, well, you believe in God, you're just suppressing it in your unrighteousness.
I don't think they believe that. I think the reason they're presups is because they know there's no evidence. They know intellectually and possibly deep down in their heart that they are wrong. They're upfront admitting they have no argument. They can't demonstrate their claims. That's why they're presups. But I could be mistaken. I could be misjudging.
I don't know. All I can do is take it from the words of them themselves. I mean, I can't see thoughts of people. I can't determine what they think. But, so many of them have told me that I, myself, Mark Reed, even though I am the consciousness inhabiting me that knows what I think, that I actually believe in a God and I'm just suppressing it. So they will literally tell you what to think. But this is why he's using, or this is part of precept, whether it's deliberate or not deliberate, to talk to you like you believe the God already. It hinges upon that. Because, they will often say, hey, you already believe in the God. You know the God exists, you're just suppressing it, kind of thing, which is just ridiculous. Like, it is so wild that it breaks down. Because when you ask them how they know that, they will say, well, the Bible says so. When you ask them how the Bible, well, that book is true because it says it. Like, they just go into circular splashing around while drowning,
Spirals, Mark, spirals.
I'm sorry, spirals, not circles.
Yeah, they spiral down into the black hole of please, can I have some more? It's freaking wild. Now it just there's so much, like, you can turn that around on them and be like, well, there isn't a God and you're suppressing the truth. How do we know? Who knows? Whatever.
Some atheists do that. Some atheists do that. And they say, they don't actually believe and they're just pretending to believe because of their church and stuff, which, I probably wouldn't do again. I can't tell you what I think, but some atheists do that. Yeah. We could do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then an Islamic apologist comes along and is like, oh, no, you all believe in Allah. You're just suppressing the truth.
Correct.
Completely unproductive, but sometimes demonstrating how foolish that is has value. But
yeah, that's
also
true.
on morality, like we've discussed already how objective morality doesn't make sense in the context of this discussion, but this is the same kind of composition, division, misdirect that we see with senses, right? Like, you can't confirm your senses without using your senses. Yes, but senses aren't just one thing. There's several senses. There's sight, touch, taste, hearing, etc., balance, all that stuff. And you can use some senses to confirm the validity of other senses. We can cross-check them. You can also check with other people who also have senses. And it's a whole thing. The point there being, they like to clump things together and then pretend the whole thing, even though it's a category, not a single unit, has to be presupposed as a single unit. And that's not at all true. In fact, we only use the term morality itself as just our shorthand to communicate an entire category. But what it really means is a set of values by which we judge things. You don't need objective morality. You just need the values to make your if statements, to get your oughts. That's it. If you have a value, you can evaluate certain events by how well it serves that value. If human life is your value and a God is running around telling people to go murder other people, that doesn't serve the value. Therefore, it is wrong under that value. That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah. So just for context, I feel like what I did in my opening statement was not like appeal to these very subjective things, but just like appealing to basic logic as far as like doing a comparison between what's claimed of God and God's behavior. If something is contradictory in God's behavior, then it seems like that God doesn't exist. And I guess that was the way that I was trying to go about it, was just relying on the basic laws of logic. Like, does it is the Christian God sound? I was trying to establish that the Christian God is not sound because he's contradictory. But maybe that went past Joel and the audience and the judges for that matter, because Joel seems to be saying here, you need to first justify knowledge in general in order to be able to say that these things are wrong or bad or have any kind of judgments against God.
Well, even if you just presuppose that they existed, right? Just say you presuppose that, hey, knowledge exists. We presuppose that laws of logic exist and we can use them, kind of thing. Just say we make that presupposition with Joel, right? The difference is he's also presupposing where they come from. Now, there's no reason why you have to grant that. You can grant the presupposition that they exist. He's got to demonstrate they actually come from a God if you reject that presupposition. So we can even presuppose all the same things he does and just require him to prove it's from a God. There's no reason why we can't do that if he wants to do that as well. And if he doesn't want to presuppose, if he doesn't want to justify our presuppositions, well, he kind of is, because he believes in them as well. Like, he will acknowledge that the laws of logic are a thing, all of these things are a thing, but he wants to go back and say, well, you've got to prove where they come from. I'm saying they're from a God, but I'm not going to prove it. I'm just going to say it is, and just keep asserting that it is. So it comes back to, well, I can just say they are inherent properties of the universe. Job done. Bye. That's it. And then it's just he said, she said, or he said, basically just my claim versus your claim. That's it.
And just asserting. It breaks my brain that we live in a world where supposed professional debaters or even debate teachers, like Joel claims to be, think that just asserting things is a good way to argue. That's how you end up with Christian nationalists. That's how you end up with fascists, because we built a intellectual model where you can just declare things and never support them. So it doesn't matter what's true. It doesn't matter what experts who look into these things have to say about it. You just declare it, and that's all. It's disgusting. It's disturbing, but it's disgusting.
Well, look at the president. He just declares stuff to be true. He just declares that the country's going well economically. He declares that, COVID's going to end by the end of the week. He's going to declare all of these things. Like, where is the critical thinking to say, is what he is saying in fact true?
Yeah. I mean, every time people bring up facts, he tends to fire them and replace them with people from the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah. Alternative facts. Yeah, people that'll give them alternative facts. Yeah.
Listen, guys, I know that it says that we lost a shit ton of jobs in June, but don't worry about that, because like everything else is up.
Yeah, it sure is. Price of eggs, price of housing, price of gas. Oh, so many things are up. I can't even.
But you're doing really well. You're doing you're doing better than you ever have. Like this is the gaslighting. Yeah.
Listen, the global peace president has renamed the Department of Defense to be the Department of War, and I can't think of a better way to exemplify peace by
It's 1984. War is peace. We've all read the book,
Oh, John, could you check Discord for just a quick sec when you got a second, mate? No rush.
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to it.
No rush. Continue on with what you were saying. I really want to hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say that Casey, my wife, was like, that Donald Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. Like he's actually reached out to the committee for it. And it's like, hey, you gonna give us a Nobel Peace Prize? And I think that it's because Obama got one for his speeches.
Yes.
And like, it's just so funny that he's like, I want a Nobel Peace Prize. Also, Department of War, we're not going to support Ukraine. And also just fuck all the Palestinians. Like, I don't know why you think that you would get a peace prize for committing genocide, but this fucking rapist in office thinks that he deserves one.
It's because he's transactional. It's because he's completely transactional. I think that he probably has some sort of antisocial personality disorder. He thinks that Obama didn't get it for anything he did. He probably like exchanged something for something in order to get it. Like he really is just transactional.
Yeah, it's up for sale, apparently. Because remember, he didn't just ask for it. He also threatened Norway, the nation, which is not the same as the Nobel Committee, with sanctions if he doesn't get what he wants.
Correct.
Because that's how that works.
I feel like Stormy Daniels definitely proved that he's transactional.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. It's Sweden, not Norway. My meat brain malfunctions from time to time because unlike God, I'm not infallible. But also remember that he recently blew up a fishing boat full of civilians of another nation.
And he blew up the Iran nuclear deal, which was actually doing really well to make sure Iran didn't get any weapons of mass destruction, and killed one of their highest generals, establishing that they're going to hate America for a long time afterwards. Actually, it's really interesting to look at the history of Iran and why they dislike the US so much, because spoiler alert, it's not because they're jealous of your freedom. I'll give you the tip right now.
And then in his second term, he brags about how he destroyed Iran's nuclear sites after he exacerbated the situation by blowing up the Iran nuclear deal.
Yep.
Yeah. Blow the things up and then blow the things up. But there is one thing that we do have going for us, and that is people have long said if only the United States could export some freedom to the United States. Well, good news, we're invading our own cities now.
Is that good news?
President. So maybe we can finally be free in the land of the free or something.
Mark, I don't want to hear your shit about the National Guard cleaning up the parks in DC and that driving crime down. Okay, listen, everybody looking at the National Guard sweeping up their trash, that definitely swayed them away from carjacking people. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a broken window theory in the sociology of criminology. Like if you go into a neighborhood and there's a broken window, people are going to think, oh, this is a shit neighborhood. No one cares. And there will be crimes and robberies and such. But if you go in and fix that window, the crime rate drops because people see people actually care. They're watching, they're taking care of this neighborhood. And also maybe they'll help each other, or it's a whole thing. There actually is a legitimate thing to that. But I don't know that mulching the national parks really qualifies as fixing broken windows for the purposes of that theory.
Yeah. No, and Mark, I hope you got my facetiousness on that. Like I was not being serious.
Okay. No, that's all right. That's okay. No worries.
Oh, fun. Yes, freedom through martial law. Oh, goodness. But we do digress. As we are prone to do around these parts. People come here for the tangents, I'm telling you.
View. So, do I consider God omnibenevolent, even though he commanded the killing of the Canaanites of all ages and non-combatants in Numbers 31 and 1 Samuel 15, which he didn't even mention, but I'll offer that up as well. Yes, of course I do, because internally, we are talking about warfare. We are talking about conquest. We are talking about a one-off requirement that happened in the Old Covenant in order to punish a people that were under God's ban for 400 years, offering human sacrifice, committing all kinds of atrocities.
offering human sacrifice, like the Israelites did. But never mind that. Also, that 400 years thing that always rubbed me the wrong way. Like, how were they supposed to know? Like, oh, God's been mad, but since he doesn't appear to anyone and talk to anybody except Moses, apparently, how were they supposed to know that God didn't like what they were doing? And also, they had their own gods, because remember, Old Covenant, Old Testament, thou shalt have no other gods before me, but there are definitely other gods. But that's a side issue. Like their gods, the ones they worship and who have power over their civilization, apparently, are saying, yeah, do this thing, sacrifice your children to us, like the Israelites do. But never mind.
Well, he addressed the omnibenevolence, but not the omnipotence, because there must be some other way for an omnipotent God to deal with the situation other than to command his followers to unalive everybody in the tribe and take the daughters for themselves. Like that's there must be another way an omnipotent God could carry that out besides going, hey, just absolutely slaughter them, except for the girls that have never known a man, take them for yourselves, and don't forget to give some to the temple, by the by. That there must be another way for an omnipotent God to do that. I cannot believe that sort of... So does he address that, is my question?
No.
No.
Just to answer you.
Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
No, he doesn't. But I feel like like this is just divine command theory theology here, that God is sovereign over everything, and so he can, do whatever he wants. And I don't think that necessarily makes it, like, just because God is God, that doesn't make it good. Like, if we have a better sense of what is good and what is best for humankind, and we can recognize that that's not killing infants, like whole ass infants, shoving a knife through their chest, like that's not what's best for humanity. Like, that's a very basic thing. And I feel like if God can't recognize that, then that makes him not omnipotent, and it also makes him not omnibenevolent.
Yeah, that's a thing I've always wondered about too. Like, why does he need an army to invade these cities? Isn't this the same God who just blew up Sodom and Gomorrah with fire from the sky and whatnot?
Yep.
Why do we need apologists? Why do apologists have to explain God to us? Why are we not born knowing? Why do we have to be taught religion? Why do we have to be taught morality? Children have to be taught right from wrong, because apparently it's not written on your heart until after you've been educated. And I guess it's a prediction after the fact, like Joel likes so much. But why do humans have to do anything that God wants if he's capable of doing it himself and better than humans can? What the fuck?
And I do want to note here, and I don't mean to poison y'all's view of Joel's response or anything, but he consistently focuses on the new covenant as if the new covenant absolves God of his past commandments. And like, my entire argument is just basically analyzing God's actions, whether they're in the New Testament or in the Old Testament. I feel if God is immutable, and I cover this in the questions section, if God is immutable, then he's responsible for his actions in the Old Testament, making the whole New Testament, or the New Covenant rather, argument like null and void, because it just simply doesn't matter if he makes a new covenant. He still required the Israelites to kill babies at this point.
Yeah, and if the morality is dependent on making a covenant with humans, that God changes his stance and makes a new covenant, then that is subjective, because it depends on the covenant at the time, or it's at least relative, because it's not the same as it was back then. And they can say, well, God made a new covenant, but then he could always make a different covenant that says that wiping out your neighbors is perfectly moral. Like, you still have a subjective morality going for you there. So the same argument that, hey, you can't have morality unless it's objective, you can then leverage that against Joel himself by saying, well, what would prevent God from making a third covenant that says that, I can have the possessions of anyone that I murder in the street? What would stop that? God's all powerful. He can do it.
Yeah, I asked him something similar to that, not in those specific words, but basically he says that God won't do that.
How does he know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's my
Yeah.
question, but he never really gives me a good answer. He's just like, "Oh, but we're under a new covenant, so God won't do that." Oh, but you acknowledge that God can do that. If he
Yes.
can't do that, then he's not omnipotent. So if he can
Correct.
do that, then he can do it in the future. And
Yeah.
Joel's just like, "No, he won't do it." Okay, good for you.
He never would, because it contradicts his morality, but of course he already did.
Yes.
And he's unchanging, but never mind that. Yeah, we've seen a few people confronted with that exact question. Like, if God ordered you to sacrifice your child, like he did with, I think it was Abram.
Isaac. Yeah.
Yeah.
Abraham sacrificing Isaac, yes.
Yeah. And the only answer we ever get is, oh, he wouldn't do that. He did do that. If you believe this thing, what do you mean he wouldn't do that? It's in keeping with his nature, which you say is unchanging.
Well, I was in a morality debate with Jim Bob. I don't know why. I'm sorry, John. I don't know why I do these things. But he sort of said that, because I had the question, like, if God commanded you to kill a whole bunch of people or genocide, but would you do it? And he was sort of, no. And then my question was, but that's God's commandment. God commanded you to do that. So would that be moral for you to do, or moral to refuse it? And so his answer was, well, I wouldn't do it, but it would be moral to follow what God says. So what's the difference, right? What's the difference? Yeah, it was really interesting.
Very often we have a hard time even getting a definition of what the hell sin even is. I mean, God himself confesses to sin at a couple of points in here, but whatever, it's understood to be defiance of God's command.
Correct.
Is what I get from a lot of apologist types. And we'll just take that as its word. That's what Jesus is for. So when God tells you go kill a whole bunch of people, you can defy his command. You've committed a sin. Jesus, forgive me. Ta-da! You're good. You don't have to obey God because you've got Jesus dong in your mouth. Eck now. Get more Jesus.
Amber, it's hard to say no when you've got Jesus dong in your mouth. I mean,
it's true.
Can you just imagine?
Yeah, the old JCD. Yeah, yeah.
Oh shit! Does that have a hole in it too?
Wow.
I couldn't resist.
We ought to read the Old Testament and we ought to shudder, understanding that we ourselves are sinners like the Amalekites, like the Canaanites. But thankfully, the Bible doesn't stop in Exodus or Joshua. It progresses through to the New Testament, to the New Covenant. And in the New Covenant, we find...
the New Covenant, the one that Jesus brought when he said, all the laws are still in force.
Yeah, not one jot or tittle will have changed until all has come to pass. That is definitely a statement in the Bible.
Yeah, so but it's a new covenant though. Yeah.
That all of those questions in the Old Covenant are answered. Jesus Christ comes, and rather than turning the sword on his enemies or on the unborn, as secularists push for today, the sword, as it were, is turned on Jesus. Jesus is the God-man who dies for our sins. And that is why Jesus is the ultimate answer to the problem of evil. Jesus is the ultimate answer.
Yes, we're going to solve the problem of evil with more evil.
Yeah, with executions. Yeah, that's great. Yes. That's fantastic. So it was a good thing that Jesus died.
I mean, Mark, God is all powerful. So of course he had to incarnate so he could sacrifice himself to himself to get around the rules that he made.
Yeah, nothing
and that
sus
whole
there.
ball of nonsense. It was the only way because he's all powerful. What else do you expect him to do? Just forgive people? Holy crap.
Yeah, so he's sort of saying, hey, it's almost like he's preaching now, like the problem of evil is solved by Jesus. I'm trying to think how you would, like, the problem of evil is about suffering in the world. Why do good people suffer in this life? And he's sort of saying, but they don't suffer in the next life. I would chase down that line of thinking. So Jesus comes and allows them to go to heaven. That makes what they suffer a good thing, or them, those babies being killed by malaria. That's a good thing then, because they go to spend time with JC in the clouds, kind of thing. Is that what we're saying? Because it sounds like he's trying to say, well, the problem of evil is solved by Jesus allowing people to get into heaven. Okay, well then is that a good thing? And it doesn't sort of address the problem of evil, because you have to address the sort of original sin and all of these natural evils, volcanoes, earthquakes, and things like that. Why that actually happens in the first place. Because even if Jesus judges us on what we believe and our actions and are we a good person, okay, just say it's the most moral judgment system in the afterlife, okay, just assume that for a second, even though it kind of isn't. Let's just assume that it is. It doesn't address why those bad things happen to us in this life, why good people who are Christians get buried by landslides, right? Like, it doesn't address that. And it doesn't address why horrible people can flourish in the world and nothing ever happens to them. That's the problem of evil.
Yeah. So some people keep doing evil upon evil upon evil, unrepentant, not even sucking Jesus dong. Like, 2 Corinthians is my favorite book. Constantly fail upward. Even get convicted of 34 felonies.
Mm-hmm.
No penalty. Just do not pass go directly to dictatorship and shit. But what is an objectively moral good? Jester, who sends another $5 super chat, thank you so much, and says, please ask GE to read this one. Okay, GE, go for it.
Act now! Buy one of our new used cars. Every car smells as fresh as your creepy uncle.
Oh, I just
hope
pictured
that
you as Donnie then. Just saying.
What a visual. Thank you, Jester.
Buy one of your new used cars. Yeehaw. Nice.
Smelling like a creepy uncle. Oh no. What? And is it weird that, like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like everybody immediately knew what that smelled like,
Because we did.
Does that mean we all have the same objectively timeless, spaceless, creepy uncle?
Immaterial, transcendent.
Peak YouTube right here. This is why people come to our shows.
To the question of the dignity of women. Jesus is the ultimate answer to the question of evidence and reliability of historical manuscripts. Why? Because Jesus is the crux of history. Jesus is that revelation that John says.
Jesus is the reliability of history. Like the 4 Gospels that all say different things.
Yeah. And Jesus is the reliability. He never wrote a gospel, my guy.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
I think it's weird.
So, I mean, to me, this just came across as baseless assertions.
Well, it's more preaching than anything. It's just stating, sort of saying, Jesus is the holy truth and light. Believe. It really does come across that way. But yeah, I mean, essentially preaching is just baseless assertions. It's just stating things as fact kind of thing. So yeah, you're not wrong. He's not explaining how Jesus validates the Bible. He's just saying he does.
Man.
That's it. Yeah, I don't, like, to a believer, maybe this means something, but to me, it's just saying, hey, Jesus validates it. How? He just does. He just validates it. Well, shit.
Robin Webster says, nice Bible, Ember. Thanks. My friend Robin picked it out for me.
Nice, Robin.
I was talking earlier about the fact I have this is because of Robin Webster, who is a wonderful person and a great proponent of the community. I got to meet Robin at the ARC protest. See, there's a whole bunch of cool people. We met at the ARC protest. It was a good time. They're doing the 10th anniversary. 10 anniversary of the ARC protest, because they protested the day the ARC opened. So it's also the 10th anniversary of the Magic Zoo boat model with concrete buildings in it, but never mind that. So yeah, I don't know for sure if I'm going to be able to make it, but if you can, it's going to be a hell of a party. Probably. Anyway, thank you, Robin. I get a lot of use out of this thing.
We never got. Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 says that God has revealed himself fully in Jesus. And so it's in Jesus Christ that we have the nexus of humanity and deity. All our sins, for those who believe in him, are paid for. And
make sure you sin or you die, or Jesus died for nothing.
Sin safely. Who says that? Sin safely. I can't remember. Is that Chris?
Yeah, that's Chris
from
Mallard.
Yeah.
Daily Atheist Morning Show. That channel, if you haven't seen it, it's a trip. He has better commercials than I do, and a lot of them. They're funny as hell. But he and Ryan Koltastic go 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, which is why my show is 11 to 1, because I go after them, because I don't want to, time slot. Yeah.
Does it follow if you sin more, it means more? Does that follow? Like the more you sin, the more it meant that he so sin a lot.
Yeah.
I think the more egregious sin is what determines like how. Yeah.
Oh.
The more you egregiously sin, I think means more.
That would explain a lot of the behavior of the Catholic Church, to be honest with you.
Oh no.
Just saying.
Crusades, Spanish Inquisition, the uncountable number of essays. Oh, and the Nazis. Let's not forget them. Not
pretty egregious. Pretty egregious.
Yes.
We see the fullest revelation of God. What that means is, in the fullest revelation of God, he is self-sacrificing, he is humble, he is kind, he is benevolent, omnibenevolent. That's why we read the Old Testament in light of the New Testament. Now, if we are going to reject the Bible based on evidence, that's tantamount to abandoning the very possibility of studying evidence at all, of doing any historical inquiry at all. So John might not like my explanation. He might not like me turning to the Lord Jesus as the linchpin of the biblical worldview, but by abandoning the Bible, he's abandoning the principles of studying history. He's abandoning human dignity. Very briefly.
Does that mean that we can't have history before Jesus?
No, I've been down this road with him before, that he basically says all science, all knowledge, all kind of understanding of anything is stems from the Bible. And as I pointed out, a lot of thinkers like your laws of logic was Aristotle. That was before the Bible kind of was around, or the New Testament was around. So his answer to that is they were doing these experiments and these science and they had knowledge, but it was inconsistent.
Because all our conclusions now,
right?
Super, like we don't make mistakes. Like think maybe vaccines, for example, are not only ineffective but actually toxic rather than prevent disease. Those things never happen now.
So his answer was, well, if you do something without the belief in God, it can be reliable, but it's inconsistent with your worldview, because. And as I pointed out, but if you're an atheist, that is consistent with your worldview. And he said, no, it's inconsistent with the worldview of God. And so his entire thing is, well, you need God in order to know anything. If you know something without God, it's inconsistent, and therefore you believe in God. That's literally what he's doing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's incredibly circular. It's basically saying you need God to have any knowledge, and because you've got knowledge, then you have knowledge of God. That proves that there's a God, because you do have knowledge.
Well, that would prove that there's a God of knowledge, like Athena, I guess. Good job, Joel.
you need the Christian God for knowledge, and because you have knowledge, it proves that the Christian God is real.
Ah, there are trees, therefore there must be a tree-er.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a circular argument. It's basically saying that you have knowledge shows the God, and the God is the one that provides you with knowledge, and no attempt to break out of that circular argument at all. Like, he just states it clearly. That's what he did to me. I don't know if we do the same in this, but it sounds like that's where he's going, which is just wildly irrational.
Well, you know, Mark, the Bible says the Bible is true, and we can trust the Bible because the Bible says the Bible is true.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't lie, except
he's done that one as well.
But those are stories. Those are metaphors.
Yeah, he did that one as well. The Bible is self-fulfilling of its own truth. And it's like, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I got that one. That is such an elementary argument. I literally got it in elementary school. As I've mentioned before, I've been a debater all my life. I was in debate club in high school and whatnot, but I was debating Christians in elementary school because I was the only one who didn't go to church school with them, and they thought it was weird, and they tried to pick on me and shit. And so at elementary school, I got that the magic book is true because the magic book says the magic book is true. So I wrote on a piece of paper, everything written on this paper is true. I will give Ember all my lunch money, and you can trust this is a prophecy that must be fulfilled. It is the will of the divine because it says so on the paper, which, as already stated, everything on the paper is true. I can do that too. Now, how do we know that it's true, though? Holy crap. Kitty table, as Uncle Bobby says.
I've got 1 minute and 10 seconds left. Luke chapter 1 grounds the principles of historical inquiry. 1 John 1 also grounds the principles of historical inquiry. In the Gospels, we see women being elevated. In the Gospels, we see a Syro-Phoenician woman who is a Canaanite, redeemed, restored, welcomed into the people of God. It's in the Gospels that we see this. John wants to stick to the Old Testament as if I, as a Christian, am somehow under the Old Covenant law.
No.
When I go to the Old Covenant as a...
That's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing. He's addressing the moral question as in God did some stuff that you would consider immoral. He's not just keeping to the Old Testament. No.
He's making reference to things. I'm not going to look all of them up. I mean, these reviews, we try to keep them entertaining, but they do get a little long sometimes.
Yeah.
If we looked up every single random Bible, John chapter 1 says thus and such, but he doesn't say. If we looked up all of them, we would never finish one of these things.
It doesn't matter because he's basically grounding that the Bible is true from passages in the Bible, right? He's validating the Bible with the Bible, so it doesn't matter what the passages say. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like if I said, sorry, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I think the implication here is that like history wasn't done before the Bible or before the understanding that God gave humans that was recorded in the Bible. And I mean, we have so much history prior to the Bible, like when it was cobbled together and everything. I just don't see how that makes sense to him. But, it's presuppositionalist mindset.
It was inconsistent history because it didn't have the Jesus making it consistent.
That's why we only
figure
have
that out
if you can. The old papyruses, because it's fragmentary wisdom or so. Pay no attention to the Chinese records that go back thousands and thousands of years, or the Egyptian inscriptions. Nope. Pay no attention. Only the Levant counts for the purposes of history.
Follower of Jesus, I interpret it through Jesus Christ. It's not a different God. God doesn't change his morality, but God's morality progresses. Sorry, God's revelation of our moral requirements progresses.
God doesn't change his morality. His morality progresses. And I promise I'm not just playing word games. That actually means something coherent, for sure. What are we doing? Holy shit.
Over time. So the problem of evil is not a problem for Christianity. It's not a problem for me as a Christian. The problem of evil is a massive problem for the atheist, because evil requires a standard of...
What?
I've heard this before. This is hilarious. This is hilarious.
What? Oh boy. Yeah, we got to hear this.
Goodness. And Christianity, of course, provides one, that is God. But John's objection, ultimately, his entire argument boils down to, I don't like this. This is not a contradiction in the biblical worldview. It's not a problem, and it does not disprove God.
Will that be
yeah, that's not what
Not
it
a
boils
problem.
down to. That's not, very rarely your moral systems will be, I don't like this and that's it. Even if that is, then that's moral emotivism, and you can make an argument for that. I personally don't, but people have. Look, he doesn't, like, just saying the problem of evil exists for you, it doesn't, because we just say, well, there are natural things in the world. Like, for us, a flood is not evil or good. It just is. There is no evil inherent. But if you are a Christian, you have got to know that that flood was sent by a God. So why is the question, why would God do that? For no reason whatsoever, in an arbitrary way that makes no sense to an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omniscient being. That's the problem. And he hasn't answered it at all. He's just said, no, you have the problem because you can't explain why good or evil is a thing. It's like, but that's not good or evil. A flood is just a flood. It's a natural event. There's no intentionality. It's not evil. It's not good. It just is a uncaring natural event that has nothing to do with us, and we see it as evil. But we don't have to. That's the thing.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead, John.
I feel like I definitely grounded my positions in just the general consensus of, like, thriving societies. I mean, I didn't use those words specifically, but I do remember me appealing to, like, oh, we all generally agree this is wrong. Right. And so this is some kind of standard that's outside of myself. Like, regardless of how I feel about genocide, it's generally considered to be a bad thing. So it's like, I feel like it's on this on par, at least in that respect, to Joel's claim of God somehow being against genocide, which I don't see how he could make that argument. But, like, I feel like his claim that I'm just basing it on my feelings, like, I was pretty unemotional and not feelings oriented in my opening statement.
Well, yeah, and you're sort of appealing to a intersubjective agreement of ethics across a society. So you're appealing to ethics rather than, personal morality of yourself. So, and a lot of people do. They are ethicists. They'll say, hey, I go by the intersubjective agreement on what is good for people, and they agree on it, and then that becomes the ethics of that society. And morals and ethics, usually the ethicist would have to sort of say how they are differing. But yeah, there's no problem with that. There's absolutely no problem with that. Your morality is based upon intersubjective ethics of the culture in which you live. That's fine. It's subjective, obviously, because it depends on the stance of all the people in the culture, but that's fine. There's no problem with that. Some people claim a moral intuition. It is what they feel, but you weren't doing that. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do the same thing with laws. Like, you'll get certain apologists will say, oh, well, laws mean there must be a lawgiver, except, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a single all-powerful lawgiver. Some, speed limits are set by city councils, right? It's on the mayor just signs off or whatever. But like a speed limit, it's a law. It's what the voters or their representatives have decided upon, but it can be changed with another vote, either by the people or their representatives. So it is subjective, but it's intersubjective, because if you go faster than that speed limit,
Mhm.
regardless of whether you agree with it or not, you're going to get a ticket.
Yep.
Ember, are you telling me that God didn't set the speed limits on the roads?
How
Why have
dare
I been
you?
following them? Like I
Right?
can go, I can go whatever speed God personally reveals to me, right?
That's the absolute truth, though. But it only works if you get a Christian judge, not these activist judges who insist on
Oh
like
yeah, these leftist
normalizing
leaning.
things across society or whatever. It's
Yeah,
it's not.
fuck logic.
Yeah. But if you beg forgiveness from the almighty power and tithe 10% of your income, then it'll get dropped to a moving violation and it's only 2 points on your license or something. Something like that. I don't know. Consult a lawyer. No legal
I don't
advice
know.
here. No
I
medical
prayed a
advice.
lot for my speeding tickets to go away, and it hasn't helped yet. So just
Yeah.
saying.
Oh boy. I've only gotten 2 speeding tickets in my life. Once was right after I got my license. It was doing 45 in a 45 zone. I got the ticket dismissed, but because I had just gotten my license, there's a weird quirk of law in my state that if you get any citation at all, whether it sticks or not, just getting the citation within 90 days, your license is suspended for 6 months.
What the hell? That's stupid.
Exceedingly, yes.
Yeah.
The other was, I forget the details, but I contacted one of those attorneys who specializes in making tickets go away because my boss at the time said, well, you either got to pay a lawyer or the court. If you go with the court, you also get points on your license. So maybe call the lawyer. So I called the lawyer and he talked to the DA as they do or whatever. And he got the charge reduced to running a stop sign. The violation happened to be on an interstate. So I ran a stop sign on a road that notoriously does not have stop signs. But okay, whatever. Laws make less sense than the Bible sometimes. But those
impressive.
So there's that.
That'll be it.
Cool.
Okay.
And that will be the end of Joel's 5-minute rebuttal to Godless Engineer's opening statement.
All right.
All right, John, rip him. I thought I was thinking about doing the rebuttals and then calling it. Are you still up for that, John, or are you getting a bit tired, mate? I know it's a lot later there.
Yeah. No, I'm fine for those. I know that. So I've got my rebuttal that I go into, and then we go into questions. So I don't know how you want to break that up, but yeah, my rebuttal's next.
Yeah, I was going to suggest we call it after your rebuttal, and that should be a nice place to leave it for next time. I really want to hear you rip them apart here. I mean, I really do. Like, there was so
That's fair.
like
That's fair.
there was so much to rip into that he had. So yeah, I do notice you in the background taking notes as well, which is awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad that you noticed that because I watched somebody else kind of react to this, and they're like, I don't see John taking notes, but he should really be taking notes. And I'm like, no, I'm taking notes. Like I've got like a notepad over here. Like I've got like an electronic one that I just take notes on real quick and everything. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I always take notes during the debates, even though people think that I'm just not paying attention.
I don't know. I saw you looking down. Okay, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
He was manifesting, or I don't know. I don't know. It's
the Holy Spirit was providing the notes for it.
Yes. Oh,
yeah, the power of discernment going on over there. Yeah, no, I got you.
Holy Spirit, activate. Holy Spirit, activate.
The power
now,
of
if he
Christ
were the source
compels
of all
you.
knowledge, you wouldn't need notes. You could just whisper in your ear. Like
maybe it was
there's
written
so
on your
passages.
heart. You could just open up your heart and go, yeah, that's great.
Yep, I'm just gonna scribble it real quick. It'll be fine.
Like you do.
Yeah.
Godless Engineer, you will get 5 minutes to rebuttal to Joel's opening statement, and it starts whenever you say your first word.
All right. So I also knew exactly what Joel was going to say because Joel runs a very basic tag argument, transcendental argument for God. There's a lot of problems with the transcendental argument for God, and that's why I didn't really bother addressing it in my opening statement because, like I said, we're supposed to be addressing the Christian God. So that's why the omni traits were very important to me because I feel like that is the main claims of Christianity. So as far as a tag argument goes, it suffers from a number of fallacies, like begging the question. It assumes a divine mind is governed by logic, yet claims only a divine mind can ground logic, unless he's going to try to say that God can break logic in some kind of way, which would make, like, let's say this. Hold on, I've got like this set of earbuds is both not earbuds but also earbuds at the exact same time. False dichotomy is another fallacy that it commits, and ultimately it suffers from an argument from ignorance, and it also uses a category mistake. Joel wants to claim that atheism cannot justify the things that he is talking about, like the intelligibility, laws of logic, mathematics, and all that kind of stuff. But there's several different solutions for that within a more secular or naturalistic point of view. One of those is a naturalized epistemology, and there's also emergent. I always have trouble saying this, emergentism, and several other ways in which you can justify all of those different things. I do want to get to some of the more specific things to my actual opening.
Yeah, that's really good. That's
so
really good. I want to talk about that for a second. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if God is the foundation for logic, then he wouldn't be bound by logic. That is brilliant. I love it, because then it's sort of like, well, is God, does logic apply to God? How could it apply to God if he's the foundation for it? No, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I love it. Because if he's the one that causes logic, well, he could choose not to be bound by it. Therefore, he's illogical. And the precepts absolutely do not want to say logic doesn't apply to God, because illogical things don't exist. And we all know that, right? Illogical things do not exist. A married bachelor doesn't exist. All of these illogical things. But how can God be the foundation for logic? Like, logic is necessary. God is necessary for logic, but it doesn't. But it still applies to him. It would have to exist first. Brilliant. I love that. That is awesome. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you pointed out begging the question. You pointed out maybe just a little bit more. I'm really nitpicking, John. Maybe just a little bit more explanation of what begging the question is. I do realize, though, your time is limited, so trying to get all of that explanation. This is the bullshit asymmetry principle, right? Like, it takes so much longer to point out the bullshit than it does for him to just spew it out in the first place. And but yeah, no, really good. That's really good. I loved all of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do later, and I guess you guys will see in a future stream that I do cover like more specific ways in which tag commits those fallacies. But like for this rebuttal, I really wanted it to come off as this is not the topic of the debate, but there are responses to this. So I'll just generally cover them and then get into like the actual meat of the conversation.
Yep.
Hell yeah. And I also want to point out, we'll wrap this stream at the end of this rebuttal, like we were just discussing. The cross-examination section will be in the next show, which will be on Mark's channel. I believe also co-streamed on GE's if you're watching there. But I see people asking about how to find channels. So Mark's is Mark Reed, just like you see spelled on the screen, REID. Atheism, Mark Reed Atheism. Just youtube.com, little @ Mark Reed Atheism will get you right there. I'm Better Than Ember, also with the little @ or you can go to betterthanember.com for all my links. The main YouTube is the top one. And of course, if somehow you don't know, John is @ Godless Engineer. So yeah, you do follow everybody, because we all do some cool shit.
Makes a pretty big deal about sticking with the Old Testament. And I guess my logic surrounding focusing on God's behavior in the Old Testament as a test of his omnibenevolence or his omniscience or omnipotence, I I take from the concept in Christianity that God is the same in the past as he is in the present and as he will be in the future. Mainly that God is immutable. He's unchanging in that kind of way. If Joel believes Jesus is God, then Jesus is also culpable for God's actions in the Old Testament, making God.
I'm going to interrupt because you brought an interesting thing bubbling up in my mind. This idea that God is the same in the past as he is in the present, as he will be in the future, that runs into the same problem of induction that they ask about trusting natural processes. Like, how do you know it'll be the same in the future? But it's even worse for Christianity because Jesus coming constitutes a change, right? He's not the same at one point in the past as he was in a different point in the past because he incarnated. If the mythology is true, then the assertion that he's unchanging isn't. Or so it seems to me.
Right. But I think I think some Christians do say that he is immutable, he never changes. Some sort of say his basic nature is. There is a lot of disagreement around this, and I really want to stress that. So it really depends on what he says, but because they split hairs over this sort of minute things, they would say that it was a different person in the Old Testament that did those things, but the same God. Right, but a different person, but the same God, which is so, as you pointed out in your opening, it violates the laws of logic, really. Three persons, one God. It's weird. It's so strange. But yeah, I think that's how he would get around it. So I'm not sure you can leverage that against it. But if it is like we're talking about God exists, right? So he'd have to argue that the God of the Old Testament is not the same God that Jesus is, and he won't do that. He will not do that. So just by the title of the debate, the same God or the same person?
Oh, well, okay. So in the question and answer, which you guys will see later, I start off with very basic question answer. Is Jesus God? And he goes, yes. Is God immutable? And he asked me to define it, and I defined it for him. He's like, yes. And so he builds that logical bridge. Well, Jesus is God. God is immutable. So God is therefore Jesus via God is culpable for things in the Old Testament. So that's why I stipulated here, if he considers these things this way, then God is culpable for his actions in the Old Testament. But he doubles down on the special pleading in the question and answer section by saying, oh no, Jesus is God and God is immutable. So
right. Yeah. So it kind of depends on what he needs the answer to be at the time, basically. But I mean, I would just drop Jesus altogether. I'd just say, hey, is it the same God? Then that's God, because you're not arguing whether Christian Jesus is anything. It's the Christian God. So it has to be the one that you're talking about. Is the God in the New Testament the same God as the God in the Old Testament? If the answer is yes, then what you're calling it doesn't matter. It just doesn't.
Yeah, but he's trying to switch the conversation there. He's trying to switch the context, because he's trying to say, well, Christians aren't called to do these things. And so I make it painfully obvious. Like, I'd specifically point this out. Like, I am not trying to say that Christians now are called to commit genocide against anybody, but I am holding God responsible for the genocides he directly commits. And so like those are two different topics. And so that's why I kind of wanted to draw that line there.
Well, he's trying to conflate that Jesus is not the same God as Yahweh that did those atrocities, but his theology says that it is the same God, right? It's just three different persons, but the same God. So what I'm sort of pointing out is, if he thinks they're the same God and the debate is about a God and not a person who is a God, then he can't argue. You can use that against him.
I wonder why they stopped at three persons. Like, it would be so easy to say, because the Bible talks about the Spirit of Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh, yada, yada, yada. It would be so easy to say all the angels are also facets of the God. all the saints are little specks of God. Like they're not Jesus level incarnation, but there's bits of God in them. It's something like you could do that. Why not do that? I don't know.
Well, a lot of it is just. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I keep interrupting you, Mark. I was just gonna.
No, it's probably a delay, mate. It's probably a delay on, because it takes probably about 300 milliseconds to sort of get the signal over here.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that 3 is a magical number, and so like they think that it's a divine thing, and that like that's why you have so many like base 3 almost numbers in the Bible and in biblical numerology that are important. Like there's of course 3 for the triune God, and there's 3 angels of the Lord. Yeah, 3 kings. There's 3 angels of the Lord that visit Abraham. There's 3 all across there, and then you've got numbers like 4, or not 4, but 12. You multiply 3 times 4 to get 12, but you got 12, the 12 tribes of Israel, and you've got all this 12 numerology in there, and then you've got different numerologies that are supposed to be divine numbers and everything like that. And there's like a whole subgenre to like biblical interpretation that takes into account the different kinds of numbers that appear there and are important.
Well, I think it's just, I mean, I don't understand why it's just not 2, because obviously they wanted Jesus Christ to be the God figure, but they couldn't get away from Yahweh being the only God you should follow. Like he is the only God. So to me, it really just seems like they threw Jesus in there. But I mean, a lot of these things, it just comes from how the early church fathers interpreted it, and they passed it down ever since. A lot of it to me just has no real rhyme or reason. It's just some church leader interpreted it. And don't forget, with the Council of Nicaea, they interpreted things in way different ways. And Constantine sort of brought them together and said, God damn it, agree on something. Just have this as an agreement that this is what we believe consistently. Because there are a lot of early sects that didn't believe in the Trinity and believed in something else. And, it really was Constantine to blame for saying, hey, we want one consistent thing, throw everything else out the window. It's not like they appeal to this, oh, well, all Christians believe basically the same thing. Isn't it amazing? It shows a God. And it's like, no, it shows that some dude made things canon is what happened.
Yeah. And Constantine doubtless played a very important role in a couple different ways. But I blame Marcion because he started putting together a book of official fairy tales. And the other church fathers were like, oh, fuck no. And so we got this. Well, we got the Catholic version of this. Then the Protestants came along and stripped out a few books, and that's it. You know the story. But before that, no, it didn't occur to anybody. There should be like one ultimate compendium, and all the rest would be considered heresy. I mean, they considered them heresy anyway, but details.
Yeah.
I digress.
God's actions in the Old Testament very pertinent to the characterizing God as omnibenevolent or omniscient or omnipotent. And so that's not me, focusing on the Old Testament or whatnot and ignoring the fact that they're under a new covenant. I'm not saying that God is somehow telling Christians now that they have to keep chattel slaves, even though they definitely preached that up until, at least here in America, 1865, and even past that, there are religious justifications for segregation and, treating minority groups here in America pretty horribly. There's that, but also my judgment of God is not based on my own current feelings, but I try to use a very objectively based look at human rights, as well as our continually advancing and progressing knowledge of how best to build a society and a civilization. We know from past experiences in various civilizations that chattel slavery does not promote the well-being of conscious creatures or of humans in general. I personally use secular humanism in order to inform my moral considerations and my moral conclusions. I would also say that it's definitely not a feelings thing, because if I am just using feelings, then Joel similarly would just be using feelings. It's just that Joel has pretty significant feelings for like God's wants and needs, whereas I have significant feelings for, you know, the health and well-being of other humans in our society. And
Yeah,
so it's all
I don't
about
think
where
that's
do
just I don't think that's just feelings though. I mean, it might not be objective, but your stance may be on wanting to live in a world where you can, you know, make decisions for yourself and things like that, that is something that you want. And to sort of just minimize that to feelings, I'm not sure is 100% accurate. There's a whole bunch of things that sort of inform our wants, and just feelings. I really think that that's minimizing it a lot. You know,
I would agree. And I guess my point here was that I could see where Joel was going. Joel was trying to minimize my position to just be how I feel at a particular time.
right.
And I was trying to level the playing field with him in saying that, well, if my justification is just because of feelings, then Joel is also just justifying his stuff because of his feelings. So
Right.
like if he's going to minimize my position, then he automatically minimizes his own. Maybe I should have been a bit more explicit about that, but like I agree with you that it's like definitely minimizing, and that's not like truly representative of
Yeah.
my position. But I guess I was doing my best to cut his feet out from underneath him on that
Yeah. Yeah.
particular aspect.
No, I get that. I think it becomes meta ethics at that point. Like, so sort of ethics and morality is what we should do at the time, and meta ethics is like the goal we're trying to get to. So if you are a Christian and say, hey, you know, God's divine command theory is what you follow, then the meta ethics would be the glory of God or whatever you're trying to accomplish with that. So that is a good point, that you're really going back to, well, if I'm just like my meta ethics and so I want a flourishing, healthy society and healthy people, then you're doing the same thing in wanting the glory of God. You haven't actually said why you ought to want the glory of God. Like, why are you actually subscribing to that? There can be objective, and the thing is, if you're an atheist, you can still purport an objective morality. I don't think so, but others disagree and say that you can appeal to evolution and, you know, cooperation among species and things. It can be done. I don't hold to that to myself, but it's not just true. It's subjective or God. That's not the case. People, you know, subscribe to other things. So, but no, I get what you're saying. I really do. It's weird that he'd just say, hey, it's all your feelings. It's just, yeah, a sort of hand wave, not actually addressing the morality question.
I feel that it's all your feelings.
They're not the droids you're looking for.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. That only works on weak minds, Joel. I'm sorry. That's not going to work on John there.
We place that emphasis on? Do we place it on God, or do we place it on the well-being of humans in our society? I choose to put the emphasis on the well-being of humans in society. We can see in Christianity how the moral landscape of that religion has changed so much over time. Prior to 1865, you had Christians making arguments, preaching from the pulpit about how people were to be enslaved as chattel. You have God directly in the Old Testament commanding it in Leviticus 25, Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, laying out this entire system for purchasing chattel slaves, which we would find abhorrent now. That's not an emotional conclusion that I've come to. That's sorry, what?
Finish your last sentence.
That's an objective conclusion that I've come to just based on a requirement of this basic human rights and human dignity that we afford to people now, that we've come into this understanding that this is the best way to ensure the survivability of our species.
Cool. That will be the rebuttals to.
I'm not sure that's objective, because why is survival of our species important? You can make an appeal to evolution and things like that. I've certainly seen people do it before. I would say that from my position, I would say that our instincts and our impulses as animals, and we have a survival impulse, we've got a reproduction impulse, we've got hunger, we've got all of these impulses. They would not raise for me to the level of a moral system, a code of conduct, but other people argue they do. Dr. Graham Oppy, really good philosopher, argues that they do. So there's a lot of disagreement on that, and that's just within atheists, all of those people are atheists. So it is possible to argue for an objective ethical standard. I don't. I think it's still subjective, that I care about human well-being, and I care for multiple reasons, least of which is that I am a human, right? If I was a groundhog, I probably wouldn't care so much about humans. Just saying. It's got nothing to do with feelings. It's to do what I objectively am. But I don't think it makes a moral system. I don't think it makes that code of conduct. But no, that was really good, except for the last one trailed off a bit. I get that you were trying to wrap up all of the counters to that massive load of bullshit all into one last sentence. I get that. It's very interesting that I think that was really good, actually. That was a really good rebuttal, except for the last bit. And I really am nitpicking, John. That was really good. I love the way that you sort of went to the irrationality parts of it, because he is absolutely relying on not soundness, because soundness is actually demonstrating and how you demonstrate your premises are true. He's focusing on the validity, the pure logic of it all. And as you pointed out, like, just saying that God is logical does not get you to a God. It doesn't. It has to also have some reason for us to think it's true. But I love that you're undercutting his logic there. It is really good. And that's, if he brings up logic in his opening, that's what you should be rebutting. So I think it was fantastic. No, I was really impressed. That's good.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I appreciate that, and I know that there's like a lot of things that I could have said either better or worse there, but I definitely was trying my best to just kind of go through chronologically, and I think the problem is that with Joel, he's mainly focusing on his tag argument and not so much on the actual discussion being had. So it's like I had to address half of my rebuttal was addressing that, and then the other half of it was trying to parse out like what his actual problem was with my opening statement. And I think what it essentially comes down to is he's saying, well, you just feel like it's wrong, and that doesn't make it wrong. And it's like, okay, well, I feel like I'm being rather like unemotional at the very least about it, so that it's not like just my feelings. As you said, that's like reducing it down like past what it actually is. And just saying that it's my feelings is not really encompassing like the sort of approach that I take to it, because it's not that I feel like genocide is bad. I have a justified reason for considering it bad, and I think that that's what he's not addressing.
Well, you can address that by sort of going to things that we find distasteful and don't want to do, but we still do anyway because they're moral. For instance, we have to train people to do amputations, right? Like if something has to be amputated, somebody gets like, meningococcal or some of the, flesh-eating bacteria or something like that, the surgeon has to amputate. But that is something he doesn't want to do, finds incredibly distasteful. Nobody wants to do that. But we still do it anyway, right? We go, that is for the best of the patient. That is for their well-being. We're going to do this act because it is the moral thing to do, right? So it isn't about our feelings. It's about what is good for the well-being of humans. And sometimes we've got to do distasteful things in order to accomplish that goal. So that's the way you address that, hey, my morality is just my feelings. Now, they could possibly argue that meta-ethically, like your commitment to well-being is just your feelings. again, you handled it perfectly. You said, well, then your commitment to your God is just your feelings as well, right? That's the case in every situation. But when they say, hey, morality is just your feelings, no, I do plenty of things that I don't particularly want to do, that I feel maybe even awful about. You know, that surgeon may feel awful about what he's done and have some real, and that's why we've got to train people to do certain things that, you know, just by instinct and intuition we don't want to do, because they need to be done, because in the long term it is good for society, it's good for us, it's good for everybody. So yeah, that's the counter for it.
Yeah. I'd also shoot. I'm trying to keep so many thoughts in my head at the same time. You were in a bit of a sticky position, having only 5 minutes to rebut him, reinforce your own thing. And I mean, me personally, again, you know, everybody's going to take a different approach, and our diversity of approaches is our ultimate strength. But me personally, I would have suggested hammering more on the fact that the actual question is, does the Christian God exist? You know, and it's just his wishes. The motivated reasoning, right? Without his motivated reasoning, he can't get to even his presuppositions, because that's all he's got is taking his preferred conclusion and working backwards, right? Like he paints it out like he's building upwards from that first premise, which is circular, but he got there by working backwards. Without that motivated reasoning, you never get there. But also, most importantly, the actual question, I'm thinking of Jay Bundy now, the way he hammers his opponents with the point. And the point is, does the Christian God exist? So, I mean, again, that's just me, but I would have like every single sentence playing whack-a-mole with that pile of shit he dropped there on the table. I'd be like, but does this show the Christian God exists? And then the next thing, but does this show the Christian God exists? It starts to sound like a church service, and that's kind of on purpose, because it creates that irony, that extra harmonic, if you will. That's the rhetoric part of it, I suppose, the performance part that either will convince the audience or piss them off, depending, and sometimes both, you know. But that's just my take on it.
I totally agree with you. I think that repeating how none of his opening statement actually answered the question of the debate, I think that if I had done that more, it would have been better. You know, especially in the part where I was addressing tag, like, because I started off by saying this doesn't actually address the question, but then I left it at that. And I think that if I had, you know, sprinkled that in throughout the tag discussion at the very front, I think that that could have really driven my point home. So I totally agree with you there, Ember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, everybody's going to have their own approach, and that's a good thing, because we never know what point, what argument, what perspective, which morsel of random knowledge. All our heads are full of all kinds of interesting things. We never know what the thing is that's going to get through to someone and crack that egg and like loosen the gears of their critical thinking to get the wheels turning. Like, I think back to Godless Granny's story. You know, she was a creationist for decades and decades, until finally it just clicked for her that the flood could not have happened. It was factually untrue. And if that weren't true, then all the rest of it is at least suspect. And that got the wheels going. And very quickly, her entire faith crumbled and she was free, which is, in her case, it's just wonderful. I realize for some people it's traumatic as hell and terrifying, which is another reason that we often promote the Recovering from Religion Foundation. Links for that in the description as well as all my videos, because you never know who's going to need it. It's not just for deconverting people. It's if you're still religious, they don't care. They just want to help, you know? So just to be clear on that. But I do digress. That's going to do it for this show, folks. Part 2 will be over on Mark's channel.
Yeah.
Links for everybody in the description. So make sure you're subscribed everywhere. Same time tomorrow. I've got an evening live. I've got Hugh Ross is going to tell us how UFOs are real and also demons. That should be
Oh
fun.
no.
That's 8 p.m.
Oh no.
Eastern. And then, of course, there's the morning show on weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, every day. It'll be a fun week. I hope you join us for that and a bunch of other stuff. All my links are on betterthanember.com because I'm on a lot of channels. Mark, what's up with you?
Oh yeah, I've got a couple of days. I'm going down to my parents-in-law place, which should be fun. And then I'll be back by my Wednesday or Tuesday night for Aimbot, Am I Morally Bankrupt or Them? And that's going to be an open stage because apparently people wanted it and they found it fun. So that's going to be open for better or for worse. And on Friday, my Friday, Thursday night Eastern time, I have Fundamentalist Fails, where I'll be looking at another complete bollocks up by some fundamentalists who make some terrible arguments. Last time it was somebody using AI to prove God, which was actually hilarious. It was Canadian and incredibly funny. So yeah, check it out. But that's about it, really. I want to try and get more debates, like you, John. I'm always looking for debates, but sometimes they're hard to find. I get you. But yeah, that's me. Thanks, Ems.
Absolutely. And John, what are you cooking this week?
Well, so tomorrow I'm on the line with Austin Archer at 2 p.m. And then, I have various things I'm doing throughout the week. I have normal videos that are going up. I've got interviews that I've been recording and I'm going to be putting up. So I've just got stuff that's going on all week next week. But I do want to try to ruin Mark on something real quick. Mark,
Okay.
do you know the organization called Catholic Answers?
Oh
No.
no.
They have an interactive, like visually interactive AI apologist.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think I saw some atheists talking to that, and I found it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fully accessible through the web. Like they use like just web technology in order to present it, and it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to get like a code to be able to talk to it. But I don't know if you'd be interested in trying to debate an AI Catholic apologist, but that's out there for you to hone your debate skills on if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, I think I got it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Why not?
Yeah, it's a trip. I've seen Matt Dillahunty's video on it. I know Alex O'Connor did one and got it
Yeah,
to admit
Alex did one.
it like contradicted itself within 5 minutes. It's wild. It could be fun or it could be frustrating.
Well,
Yeah,
as I've
I've
said, these are language models. They're not doing real logic. They're not like
right.
sort of, doing logical propositions. They're doing language. They're language learning models. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I've wanted to do a video where I challenge it on whether or not Mary was raped. Because like
Nice.
I've found that there are even atheists out there that want to challenge me on this, and as if Mary wasn't raped by God, and it's the atheists are the only ones to admit like, yeah, this is purely just emotional because of how I was brought up. And like, of course, religious people are like, no, she gave consent. I'm like, that just proves that you don't know what consent is.
Yeah, that's pretty ishy. Oh my.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I would say is she wasn't, because it never frigging happened.
Right?
That's the only thing I would say. I don't think that God getting you pregnant would hold up in a court of law. Just saying,
But if two men testified that
Oh yeah, if two or more men testified, then it's got to be true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bible. Thank you for that one.
Holy shit.
Oh yeah. No, so mine's more of a, I guess maybe an internal critique of it, because it's like if God exists and Luke is a representation of what happened, then it's rape.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
like you can either adhere to the Gospels or you cannot. Like it kind of puts them in a weird position.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
No, fair
and
enough.
if you want to get into a weird position,
There you go.
It's a reference to another channel. I'm not going to go into that right now. Thank you all so much for joining, hanging out with all y'all folks, seeing your comments, all the jokes, the humor, the supporters, the channel members and patrons and everybody. It's all wonderful. We love it so freaking much. Thank you for coming and spending your evenings with us. We will see you again next week. And as always, remember, you don't have to presuppose something that's completely fucking incoherent because you are better than religion. Good night.
Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now.